Chapter 281. Chu Xiu's words caused Jiang Wenyuan's expression to change slightly. This was only a very small flaw. At most, it was a point of suspicion. He did not expect that Chu Xiu would actually investigate the dragon gathering pavilion because of this point of suspicion. But Jiang Wenyuan still took a tough stance. The dragon gatherer pavilion has its own rules. How can we divulge information about our guests? You want to investigate the Guanzhong torture room? You're not qualified. Get out of here in 10 breaths, or bear the consequences. With that, Jiang Wenyuan waved his hand. Immediately, more than 10 of Jiang Wenyuan's hanger-ons surrounded Chu Xiu and the others, glaring at them covetously. In the land of Eastern Qi, Jiang Wenyuan had the right to be so arrogant. Anyway, he had the immunity medallion. Even the royal family of Eastern Qi could not do anything to him, let alone an outsider like Chu Xiu. Cheng Zhouhai approached Chu Xiu and whispered, "Brother Chu, this is troublesome. What should we do? Why don't we retreat for now?" Although Cheng Zhouhai was young, he was actually a veteran constable of the Guanzhong torture room. He had also been sent to other places to carry out missions. But to be honest, this was the first time they had seen something like this. The Guanzhong torture hall had been invited here. Logically speaking, the local forces should have cooperated, but in the end, they were about to fight. They were here to solve a case, not to snatch a territory. Was there a need to be like this? Chu Xiu said plainly, "Retreat? It's easy to retreat, but don't forget, we are representing the Guanzhong torture room. Once we retreat, it means that the Guanzhong torture room has lost face. With Hall Chief Guan's personality, will he spare us or you?" Cheng Zhouhai was speechless. It was hard to say. It was easy to admit defeat, but it would be a loss of reputation. However, at this moment, Jiang Wenyuan snorted coldly and said, "You're not going to scram? Fine, beat them all out." As soon as he finished speaking, Jiang Wenyuan's mercenaries rushed towards Chu Xiu and the others. Jiang Wenyuan's subordinates were at the inner and physical invulnerability realms, as well as the 3 flowers at one's prominence and the 5 qis collecting in mind. Moreover, they were more numerous than the people from the Guanzhong torture room. Therefore, the people from the Guanzhong torture room were immediately suppressed as soon as they started fighting. This was especially true for Chu Xiu, as he was given preferential treatment. 3 martial artists of the 5 qis collecting in Origin Realm attacked Chu Xiu at the same time, forcing Chu Xiu to retreat step by step. In fact, Chu Xiu wasn't in such a miserable state. It was just that he didn't expect to use his full strength. His main purpose for coming to Eastern Qi this time was to get the martial arts manual in Qiu Zhencheng's hands, not the truth of the case. It was not worth it to risk his life for this matter. As long as he didn't act too cowardly in the Dragon Gatherer Pavilion and didn't embarrass the Guanzhong torture room, it would be fine. Although Chu Xiu was in a difficult situation, he was still relaxed. However, Cheng Zhouhai and the others were already doing their best to resist. After all, they were strong, and they didn't even have a 3 flowers at one's prominence. Just when they were about to lose and Chu Xiu was about to pretend that he couldn't win and retreat, a sharp voice suddenly came, "All of you, stop." Wang Jin rushed over hurriedly with her men, looking enraged. He had only returned to the imperial city to report on his mission. In such a short span of a day, how did so many things happen? Looking at Chu Xiu, Wang Jin said angrily, "I, Eastern Qi, came to Guanzhong torture room to investigate Qiu Zhencheng's case. How did you find out about the Dragon Gatherer Pavilion?" Chu Xiu said with a deep voice, "It's not that we found out about the Dragon Gatherer Pavilion, but that the clues pointed to the Dragon Gatherer Pavilion. Eunuch Wang, Guanzhong torture room is a professional in this area. We won't just randomly frame an innocent person." As he spoke, Chu Xiu told Wang Jin all of their speculations. After listening, Wang Jin also frowned. If it were anyone else, Wang Jin could use his identity to make them give in, but Jiang Wenyuan couldn't. Wang Jin was the deputy general manager of the front of the palace department and the emperor's confidant. Although his position wasn't too high, in the land of Eastern Qi, he was an existence that could do whatever he wanted. Even some of the collateral royal families had to be polite to him. However, Jiang Wenyuan was a sh*t stirrer in the land of Eastern Qi. No one could provoke him. He was the memorial arch that the Eastern Qi royal family had set up. In the past, the Lu royal family had already said that they would let the Jiang royal family forever enjoy peace and happiness to prove that they were different from the last generation of the Jiang royal family. If they touched him now, wasn't it the same as slapping their own faces? So, on the side of the Eastern Qi imperial court, no one wanted to offend Jiang Wenyuan. Moreover, they all kept a respectful distance from him. But right now, this matter was a bit too big, so Wang Jin could only walk up, clasped his hands at Jiang Wenyuan, and said, "Prince Anil, Qiu Zhensheng's death has already alarmed His Majesty, so right now, please cooperate. If this matter truly has nothing to do with the Dragon Gatherer Pavilion, then we won't continue to disturb you. It's only a guest register. The Dragon Gatherer Pavilion records it every day, so flipping through it should be a very simple matter." Jiang Wenyuan coldly snorted and said, "Register? There are so many Jianghu people coming and going in my Dragon Gatherer Pavilion every day. If something like a register is kept, how long would it need to be kept? Of course, it would be cleared every few days." Jiang Wenyuan's words were too half-hearted. Even Wang Jin didn't believe him. The Dragon Gatherer Pavilion was different from other restaurants. Every single customer that came and went were famous in the Jianghu. Every single one of them had to be recorded in detail. Yet, right now, Jiang Wenyuan actually said that the register needed to be cleared in a few days. He, the Grand Prince Anil, didn't even have a place to store the register? Wang Jin still wanted to say something, but he heard Jiang Wenyuan coldly snort and say, "Wang Jin, I'm giving you face by explaining so much to a eunuch like you. If you want to search my Dragon Gatherer Pavilion, bring His Majesty out if you have the ability. Or else, even if the general manager of the front palace department, Zhang Rang, comes, he still won't be able to enter my Dragon Gatherer Pavilion." Jiang Wenyuan's eunuch made Wang Jin furious in his heart. Although he was a eunuch, and had even mocked himself like that before, mocking himself and insulting others were two different concepts. However, at this moment, Wang Jin really didn't dare to fall out with Jiang Wenyuan. After all, he was just a eunuch and a servant of the royal family. If Jiang Wenyuan lost his power, he would dare to step on him while he was down. However, if the Eastern Qi royal family didn't want to touch Jiang Wenyuan, there was nothing he could do. Wang Jin had no choice but to say to Chu Xiu and the others, "Leave first. I'll report this matter to His Majesty and let His Majesty handle it." Since Wang Jin had already spoken, Chu Xiu and the others naturally wouldn't insist and left with Wang Jin. When the people of the Dragon Gatherer Pavilion saw this scene, they were shocked. They thought to themselves that Jiang Wenyuan, a prince with a different surname, was really impressive in Eastern Qi. He didn't even care about the deputy general manager of the front palace department, the confidant of the emperor. Watching the figures of Chu Xiu and the others leave, Jiang Wenyuan's eyes revealed a hint of coldness. After returning to the 9th floor, Mr. Lu was still waiting there. He had seen the scene below, but he felt that Jiang Wenyuan had gone a little too far. Everything he had was built on the premise that the Eastern Qi royal family didn't want to touch him. That was why he could cross the line unscrupulously and be arrogant. He didn't even care about Wang Jin, a confidant of the emperor. However, if he really went too far and the Eastern Qi royal family's tolerance for him reached its limit, Jiang Wenyuan would end up in a miserable state. When that happened, people like Wang Jin, who had been wronged by Jiang Wenyuan or had temporarily backed down, would probably explode even more violently. At this moment, Jiang Wenyuan didn't notice Mr. Lu's thoughts. He only said coldly, "Mr. Lu, find a time today and get rid of Chu Xiu for me." Mr. Lu was shocked when he heard this. He said, "Your Highness, you just had a conflict with Chu Xiu, and you want me to kill him. This is clearly saying that you're the murderer. Even an idiot can see the connection between this." Jiang Wenyuan said lightly, "That's right. Even an idiot can see the connection between this, but do you think I look like an idiot? Therefore, no one will think that I'm stupid enough to kill Chu Xiu at this time. They will definitely think that Chu Xiu died because of something else, or that the real murderer is trying to confuse them and frame them." Mr. Liu was taken aback. That did make sense. He had always felt that Jiang Wenyuan was a bit of a fool, but now it seemed that he was quite capable. But it was a pity that Jiang Wenyuan's identity was not so good. If he had been a normal person from the royal family, he would not have come this far. "Since your Highness is prepared, it's done. I'll do it when it gets dark. I promise that your Highness will be satisfied." Mr. Liu made an obeisance with hands folded in front of his chest, and then disappeared. At this time, after nightfall, Wang Jin was gritting her teeth and preparing to write a memorial to censure Jiang Wenyuan. He had just returned from the capital, so he didn't have to go through so much trouble. It was just a matter of a letter. As for Chu Xiu's side, except for him who didn't feel it was a big deal, the others were a bit worried about how to solve this tricky case. The main reason Chu Xiu came here was for the cultivation method in Xiu Zhencheng's hands. If the case was solved successfully, he would not suffer a loss and could get some credit. Of course, if he failed, they could also take the current situation back and say that they did not ruin the reputation of the Guanzhong torture room, but the power struggle between the Eastern Qi imperial court was a bit too complicated. It was difficult for them, a group of outsiders, to intervene. The others were thinking hard in the guest room, but Chu Xiu did not bother to stay in the guest room, so he went to wander around the Ji State Prefecture. To be honest, during the last God Weapon Conference, Chu Xiu actually did not wander around the Ji State Prefecture. During the last God Weapon Conference, the smell of gunpowder was strong. Either someone wanted to kill Chu Xiu, or Chu Xiu was killing people. The situation was very tense. But this time, Chu Xiu did not come with the idea of getting the cultivation method. Instead, he came to Eastern Qi with the idea that if he could get it, he would be lucky. So this time, he was very relaxed. However, just as Chu Xiu walked into an alley, a fierce murderous intent suddenly fell, and a powerful Qi movement attacked Chu Xiu, causing Chu Xiu to subconsciously pull out the heavenly demon dance hanging on his waist. The devil Qi swept, and in an instant, the Avicii devil knife suddenly slashed out. Chapter 282. For Chu Xiu, who had cultivated the art of extinguishing heaven and destroying earth soul shifting and the fast and slow 9 words formula, it was not easy to sneak up on him. The art of extinguishing heaven and destroying earth soul shifting increased Chu Xiu's mental strength, while the fast and slow 9 words formula's outer binding seal focused on sensing, which could avoid danger and increase one's perception. With these two techniques, it was almost impossible for warriors of the same level to sneak up on Chu Xiu. Even warriors who were a level higher than him couldn't do it. Of course, if it was a warrior who was much stronger than him, Chu Xiu couldn't do anything, just like what was happening now. The person who suddenly attacked was extremely powerful, and Chu Xiu only sensed the murderous intent after the other party had already attacked, so he hurriedly attacked with the 3 blades of Avicii. A monstrous demonic aura swept out, and with a loud bang, Chu Xiu immediately felt an extremely evil palm force blow him away. The palm force even followed his sky demon dance and invaded his meridians, causing Chu Xiu to explode with the inner lion seal, which was then able to expel the extremely evil palm force. TSK, as expected of a weapon forged from the sky demon order. Its power is really extraordinary. Mr. Liu's entire body was covered in a black robe. As he walked out of the darkness, the demonic aura around him was monstrous, making him look extremely terrifying. Chu Xiu's eyes narrowed. Phaseless demon sect. I have no enmity with your phaseless demon sect, and I even have a weapon forged from the Sky Devil Order in my hand. If anyone wants to kill me, it should be those righteous sects that want to kill me. Why do you want to kill me? Mr. Lu shook his head and said, actually, it's my habit not to talk nonsense before killing people. However, seeing that you're holding a weapon forged from the Sky Devil Order, I can teach you a lesson. It's best to keep a low profile as a person. A tall tree attracts the wind. If there's a next life, remember to keep a low profile. The blade in your hand is not bad. After I kill you, I'll keep it safe for you. As soon as he finished speaking, the demonic aura around Mr. Lu surged, and the strength he displayed was at the peak of the unity of heaven and man, second only to a martial Tao master. Chu Xiu frowned. This Mr. Lu's strength was truly terrifying. Judging from his aura, he was even stronger than the former Heavenly Sin branch leader. Of course, the current Chu Xiu was not the same Chu Xiu as when he faced the Heavenly Sin division leader. He was confident that he could escape. However, not even Chu Xiu knew the price he would have to pay. However, at this moment, Chu Xiu seemed to have suddenly thought of something. He directly said in a clear voice, the heavenly demon has no form, and the great Tao is boundless. Sacred fire refines the heart, demonic fire devours the heavens. Mr. Lu, who was about to attack, froze when he heard this. His eyes were filled with shock as he shouted, "Who the hell are you?" The 4 sentences that Chu Xiu said just now were the slogans of the Kunlun Devil cult in the past. Moreover, only the direct descendants of the Kunlun Devil cult had the right to say them. It was not strange for people to know these 4 sentences hundreds of years ago. However, now that the Kunlun Devil cult had been completely destroyed by the major sects, and some traces of it had been erased, these 4 slogans were only known by people like the Phaseless Demon sect who were still loyal to the Kunlun Devil cult. Chu Xiu said in a deep voice, "Senior from the Phaseless Demon sect, strictly speaking, I am also a disciple of the holy cult. I inherited the technique of Nangong Wuming, the hall master of the Demon Heart Hall under the Kunlun Devil cult, the 9 Transformation Demon Heart. In the past, I was just a commoner in the pugilistic world. It was because I received Nangong Wuming's inheritance that I was able to reach this level of cultivation. In order to hide my identity as a member of the holy cult, I even specially practiced the techniques of Buddhism and Taoism. That was how I reached this level." After hearing this, Mr. Lu said in a deep voice, "It's not safe here. Let's go somewhere else first." After Mr. Lu said this, he already believed in Chu Xiu's identity. In the past, the structure of the Kunlun Devil cult was very complicated. There were halls, palaces, and even organizations with different functions. Those who were not from the inner circle of the Kunlun Devil cult would definitely not know about these organizations. Moreover, Chu Xiu could actually say the name of the former hall master, Nangong Wuming. This was even more certain of Chu Xiu's identity. When the Kunlun Devil cult was breached, some of the warriors of the Kunlun Devil cult were hunted down by the people of the righteous path. Therefore, it was very normal for the inheritance to be lost in other places. Moreover, combined with Chu Xiu's performance all along, he did not have any rejection of the diabolism. He also cultivated many extremely powerful demonic techniques, which was also very much in line with his identity as a diabolism lurking in the pugilistic world. In fact, apart from the fact that Chu Xiu's identity was fake, everything else was real. However, this was something that happened in the future. A few years later, there really was a rising star of the diabolism who made a name for himself in the pugilistic world. The identity of the other party was the successor of Nangong Wuming, so many experts of the righteous path hunted him down. Now, Chu Xiu temporarily borrowed this identity, so no one would suspect his identity. Chu Xiu followed Mr. Lu to a slum at the edge of the city. There were dilapidated houses everywhere. Some ordinary people in the Ji State Prefecture were around. Ordinary rich people would not come to such a place, let alone some martial arts experts. Mr. Lu cupped his hands towards Chu Xiu and said, "Fortunately, Chu, you revealed your identity just now. Otherwise, I would have made a big mistake. Mr. Lu's attitude towards Chu Xiu was very polite. He basically treated Chu Xiu as an equal. He had already determined that Chu Xiu was the successor of the Kunlun devil cult, and he was a member of the Faceless Demon sect. In the past, he was only a vassal sect of the Kunlun devil cult, so according to the rules, he was even lower than Chu Xiu. However, now that the Kunlun devil cult was gone, even the people of the Faceless Demon sect would not adhere to the tradition like before. Chu Xiu also said, "Senior, don't worry about it. My identity is also extremely sensitive, so I don't dare to easily expose it in the pugilistic world. Previously, during the God Weapon Conference, I actually wanted to communicate with the seniors of the Faceless Demon sect. However, at that time, things were urgent, so I didn't make it in time." Mr. Lu nodded and said, "People of the Saint sect are now being chased by everyone. If our identity is discovered by those righteous sects, it will be very troublesome. It's always good to be more cautious. Moreover, your move to join the Guanzhong torture room is very clever. The Guanzhong torture room is between the imperial court and the pugilistic world, and also between the righteous and demonic sections. Even if you use some demonic techniques, it won't matter. If it were any other place, it wouldn't be so easy to pass." Chu Xiu nodded and asked, "Senior, who was it that wanted to kill me just now? I have no enmity with the Faceless Demon sect, so it definitely wouldn't be the Faceless Demon sect that wanted to kill me." Although the Faceless Demon sect was currently cooperating with Jianghu Yuan, it was only a cooperation. However, now that Mr. Lu had determined that Chu Xiu was from the Kunlun devil cult, Chu Xiu was truly on his side. One was just a collaborator, while the other was on his side. Was there a need to ask who would choose between the two? Therefore, Mr. Lu sold Jianghu Yuan out without a second thought. Mr. Lu said directly, "The person who asked me to kill you is the Prince of Peace, Jianghu Yuan." As soon as he said that, a strange look appeared in Chu Xiu's eyes. He really didn't expect that Jianghu Yuan would actually send someone to kill him just after he had a conflict with him in the day. Jianghu Yuan shouldn't be able to make such an idiotic decision. However, in the end, Jianghu Yuan made such a seemingly idiotic decision, which could clear his suspicions. Previously, Chu Xiu always thought that Jianghu Yuan was an idiot who insisted on courting death. Now, it seemed that this guy wasn't stupid, but just too stubborn. He just had to use his cleverness in the impossible. "The Faceless Demon sect is working with Jianghu Yuan?" Chu Xiu asked. Mr. Lu nodded and said, "We've been working together for a long time. The formation that we laid outside the Mirror Lake Manor was made by Jianghu Yuan's subordinates. So many of us from the Faceless Demon sect were able to sneak into the Mirror Lake Manor because of Jianghu Yuan's help. You know the reputation of our saint sect. It's a bit sensitive, and most of the time, we can only act in the dark and low-key. The sects that are willing to work with us can be counted on one hand. Jianghu Yuan is ambitious, and for his ambition, he can disregard everything. Working with our Faceless Demon sect is nothing. Just now, I told you to act in a low-key manner, not to mock you, but because your high-profile actions have already attracted Jianghu Yuan's attention. That's why he is determined to kill you. That guy is a madman now. Even I can't guess what he's going to do now." After listening to Mr. Lu's words, Chu Xiu also reflected in his heart. It seemed that he had indeed been a little high-profile recently. Although it was not to say that he was arrogant, he only considered the interests and ignored the people's hearts. The interests were the easiest to speculate. Now, Chu Xiu was now sent by Guanzhong torture room to investigate the case in Eastern Qi. Guanzhong torture room was his backer, and so was Eastern Qi. Whoever touched him would be provoking Guanzhong torture room and Eastern Qi imperial court. So normally, no one dared to touch him. However, Jianghu Yuan was very abnormal now. His ambition had expanded to the point of explosion, and he had no scruples. Whether to kill Chu Xiu or not, it was only a matter of a thought. By the way, Senior, what's going on with Qiu Zhencheng's case? Was it really done by Jianghu Yuan? Chu Xiu asked doubtfully. Previously, Chu Xiu found out about the Dragon Gatherer Pavilion, but he still didn't understand. Jianghu Yuan and Qiu Zhencheng had no relationship at all. Why did he kill Qiu Zhencheng? He got himself into trouble for no reason. Mr. Lu sneered and said, "It was really done by Jianghu Yuan, and I killed Qiu Zhencheng myself. As for the specific reason, it's actually a *T fight among the Eastern Qi imperial family. Jianghu Yuan wanted to meddle in it, but it turned out to be such a big case." Chu Xiu frowned slightly. This matter actually involved the internal struggle of the Eastern Qi imperial family. It seemed that it was really troublesome. Chapter 283. Mr. Lu had completely regarded Chu Xiu as one of his own, so it could be said that he told Chu Xiu everything he knew. He directly told Chu Xiu about the cause and effect of the matter. The founding emperor of Eastern Qi, Lu Haochang, was not the most famous emperor of Eastern Qi, nor was he the most outstanding emperor, but he was the emperor with the most difficult background. The previous emperor of Eastern Qi died early in an accident and did not leave an heir, causing internal strife in the royal family of Eastern Qi. It could be said that rivers of blood flowed. In the end, even some forces of the Eastern Qi imperial court were involved, which caused some of the power of Eastern Qi to be greatly damaged. In the end, a great ancestor of the royal family of Eastern Qi, who had been cultivating in seclusion for many years, personally intervened, and only then did the matter completely calm down. The result was that Lu Haochang, who had low cultivation talent and relatively mediocre abilities, was chosen from the many direct descendants of the royal family to be the emperor. And the first thing that Lu Haochang did when he just inherited the throne was to have sons, and he worked hard to have sons. The previous emperor had learned a lesson from his mistakes. He had no children, which led to the instability of the throne, and it could be said that he was harming others and himself. As a result, Lu Haochang did nothing for so many years, and his greatest achievement was that he had more than 30 sons, and now he had easily lived to the age of 80, but he had no intention of abdicating the throne. Lu Haochang was mediocre in ability, but his sons were not mediocre, especially those who were ranked at the top. The current case of Qiu Zhencheng originated from the struggle between the crown prince of Eastern Qi and the second prince. Lu Haochang had been on the throne for a little too long. Although he had appointed the crown prince long ago, it had indirectly given some opportunities to the other princes, especially Lu Longguang, the second prince of Eastern Qi, whose ambition and ability were no less than that of the crown prince, had long wanted to replace him. Because of the second prince's domineering attitude, the crown prince felt a sense of crisis and kept searching for allies in Eastern Qi. Jianghu Yuan was one of the crown prince's allies. The other was a hall master of the White Tiger Hall. In the end, the hall master was unexpectedly killed not long after agreeing to the crown prince's request. This caused the crown prince to change his target in a hurry and set his eyes on the Pegasus Farm's owner, Qiu Zhencheng. A month ago, when Qiu Zhencheng went to the Dragon Assembly Pavilion, the people he invited were the Crown Prince's people. They wanted to rope Qiu Zhencheng into the Crown Prince's side, but they were rejected by Qiu Zhencheng. Later on, the Crown Prince secretly investigated Qiu Zhencheng and accidentally found out that Qiu Zhencheng had secretly contacted the second prince. To be fair, the Pegasus Farm was very important to Eastern Qi, but Qiu Zhencheng himself was not. After all, Qiu Zhencheng was just a warrior in the realm of oneness of heaven and men. A warrior in this realm was considered a great master in Jianghu and a respected existence. But in the entire Eastern Qi imperial court, he could only be regarded as the backbone force. For example, Wang Jin, the deputy director, and Fang Zhenqi, the general, were both in the realm of oneness of heaven and men, which was not rare in the Eastern Qi imperial court. Therefore, even though he knew that Qiu Zhencheng had turned to the second prince, the crown prince did not want to kill Qiu Zhencheng. Jiang Wenyuan sent Mr. Lu to kill Qiu Zhencheng because he wanted to muddy the waters and prevent the second prince's strength from surpassing the crown prince too much, so that the Eastern Qi imperial family would begin to kill each other. After hearing this, Chu Xiu also breathed a sigh of relief. He did not expect that this matter really had something to do with him. The butterfly effect was very terrifying. If the hall leader of White Tiger Hall had not died, the crown prince would not have thought of recruiting Qiu Zhencheng, and naturally, this series of events would not have happened. Speaking of which, Qiu Zhencheng had died because of him. This was really a joke of fate. However, at this time, Chu Xiu suddenly thought of something. He asked, "By the way, when you fought with Qiu Zhencheng, did you feel that there was something wrong with him? After the autopsy in Guanzhong torture room, I found that Qiu Zhencheng had been poisoned by July begonia before." Mr. Lu said with a smile, "Of course I found out. Although Qiu Zhencheng was born in the wilderness, he was not a nobody. I thought it would take some effort to kill him, but I didn't expect it to be so easy. I thought it was Jiang Wenyuan who did it secretly, but later I found out that it was not Jiang Wenyuan's means." Chu Xiu nodded. This matter was really as Cheng Zhouhai had predicted. The person who poisoned Qiu Zhencheng and the person who killed him were not the same person. It seemed that there were still some secrets behind this. Mr. Lu asked, "I killed him, and now Jiang Wenyuan wants to kill you. What are you going to do?" Chu Xiu said in a deep voice, "Senior, don't worry. This matter will not involve the Phaseless Demon sect. In fact, this matter has nothing to do with the Phaseless Demon sect. In fact, if Jiang Wenyuan didn't kill me this time, I wouldn't care about him. When the matter is found to be related to Jiang Wenyuan, it will involve the battle between the Crown Prince and the Second Prince, so I don't have to care about it. But this time, Jiang Wenyuan wants to kill me. If I let him go, he might want to kill me a second time." In the land of Eastern Qi, Jiang Wenyuan was an extremely special existence. Although he was still courting death, it was undeniable that the power that Jiang Wenyuan could use was not ordinary. Now that he was working with the Phaseless Demon sect, he could use the Phaseless Demon sect to help him, but in fact, Jiang Wenyuan also had great experts in the oneness of heaven and man realm under his command, and there was more than one. Mr. Lu said, "Since you have the idea, it's fine. As a member of the Holy Church, if you need my help, you can contact me at any time. Don't be shy. And if your identity is exposed in the Guanzhong torture room, don't be afraid. You can come to the Phaseless Demon sect. Although the Holy Church has been destroyed, the people of the Holy Church are still here. They will not let you have no place to stay." Chu Xiu cupped his hands and said, "Thank you, Senior." Mr. Lu shook his head and said, "You're welcome. Now that the Holy Church has fallen to this point, not to mention that you are a direct descendant of the Holy Church, even if you want to join the Phaseless Demon sect halfway, the Phaseless Demon sect will treat you the same way." As he spoke, Mr. Lu pointed at the place behind Chu Xiu, and a mysterious look appeared in his eyes. He said in a low voice, "There's a little mouse behind us. His ability to hide is not bad, and even I was almost fooled. Do as you see fit." After saying that, Mr. Lu directly left. A strange look appeared in Chu Xiu's eyes. His body moved, and the internal binding seal burst out. His speed was extremely fast, and in the blink of an eye, he was already in a small alley behind him. What appeared in front of him was Chu Xiaoda, who had a look of panic on his face, and was ready to escape at any time. At this moment, Chu Xiaoda could be said to be extremely regretful. He regretted that he had to come over to watch out of curiosity. Previously, when Chu Xiu was strolling around the Ji State Prefecture, Chu Xiaoda was actually doing the same. However, he did not deliberately follow Chu Xiu, but he accidentally saw Chu Xiu's back. At that time, Chu Xiaoda was just about to say hello to Chu Xiu, but in the end, he saw Chu Xiu quickly leaving with a black shadow. Chu Xiaoda was puzzled, and directly followed. He was Chu Simo's adopted son, but in reality, he did not cultivate many Western region techniques. He only obtained one technique by accident, and it could increase his speed and conceal his aura. It was because of this technique that he could secretly hear so many things not far away from Mr. Lu and Chu Xiu. However, the things that Chu Simo heard were a little too shocking. The truth of Qiu Zhensheng's death was one thing, but it was just the internal strife of the royal family. After all, he had been in the Guanzhong torture room for so many years, and he had seen even more bizarre cases. However, the following conversation about the Kunlun devil cult between Chu Xiu and the black-robed man almost made Chu Xiaoda cry out in shock. He never expected that Chu Xiu would be related to the Kunlun devil cult. This was a matter of life and death. It was because he was shocked by this news that Chu Xiaoda's state of mind fluctuated a little, causing a flaw in his concealment, which was discovered by Mr. Lu. Chu Xiu looked at Chu Xiaoda and said expressionlessly, "If I say that I actually have nothing to do with the Kunlun devil cult, and that I was just lying to that person just now, would you believe me?" Chu Xiaoda gave Chu Xiu a smile that was uglier than crying and said, "If I say that I believe you, will you believe me?" Chu Xiaoda said it like a tongue twister, but in reality, even if he said he believed it, how could Chu Xiu believe him? Chu Xiu looked around and said indifferently, "No martial artists will come here. You know my strength. Are you confident that you can escape from me?" Chu Xiaoda's heart sank. Not to mention Chu Xiu, who had reached the three-flower realm, even Chu Xiu, who was in the physical invulnerability realm during the competition in the Guanzhong torture room, was an existence that he could only look up to. Li Tianhao easily defeated and humiliated him, but Chu Xiu easily crippled Li Tianhao. There was no need to explain the difference in strength. Just as Chu Xiaoda was about to fight to the death, Chu Xiu suddenly said, "Do you want to live or die?" Chu Xiaoda's eyes froze, and he said subconsciously, "Of course I want to live." Chu Xiu said in a deep voice, "Since you want to live, I'll give you a chance to live. It doesn't matter whether I'm a member of the Kunlun devil cult or not. Since you've seen all this, I can't let you go so easily." In the past, the Kunlun devil cult had a secret seal called the Holy Fire Seal. Its shape was based on the rootless holy fire at the peak of West Kunlun. I know what this seal looks like. Let me leave the Holy Fire Seal on your arm. That way, you and I will both become members of the Kunlun devil cult, and we will both have something on each other. Naturally, I won't have to kill you. Chu Xiaoda's expression suddenly changed when he heard this, and he said angrily, "If you do this, won't I become your slave, Chu Xiu? You have something on me in your hands, and I will be at your beck and call. If that's the case, you might as well kill me." From Chu Xiaoda's point of view, Chu Xiu was originally a member of the Kunlun devil cult. Even if he was discovered, he could join the phaseless demon sect and turn from a young hero in the Guanzhong torture room into a hero of the devil path. Chu Xiaoda, on the other hand, was purely wronged. His weakness was in Chu Xiu's hands all his life, and he was at his beck and call. In Chu Xiaoda's opinion, this was a fate worse than death. Chapter 284. When faced with the same problem, everyone's choice was different. Chu Xiu firmly believed that interests were the foundation of everything. Holding each other's weaknesses was far more reliable than so-called loyalty and promises. For example, the 9-branch hall that Chu Xiu had secretly established was like this. Everything was maintained for mutual interests, and the nature of the 9-branch hall was equivalent to holding each other's weaknesses. Previously, when Chu Xiu had dealt with Yang Ling, he had actually used a similar method. At that time, Yang Ling had decisively chosen to compromise, leaving behind a weakness, and had chosen to be loyal to Chu Xiu. But now, Chu Xiaoda was different. He would rather be killed than to be Chu Xiu's lackey in his next life and be controlled by Chu Xiu. His personality was much more unyielding than Yang Ling's. Looking at Chu Xiu frowned slightly. Even he had not expected Chu Xiaoda to choose to refuse. But then, Chu Xiu felt a little relieved. Chu Xiaoda's reaction was so intense mostly because of his identity. He was a foreigner from the western regions, so he was extremely sensitive to inferiority. His foster father, Chu Simo, was a slave from the western regions. So even though he had become a torture officer, he had been criticized and secretly mocked in the Guanzhong torture room. Because of this, Chu Xiaoda had been humiliated and discriminated against. In his opinion, if Chu Xiu really wanted to treat him like a slave, then he might as well fight to the death with Chu Xiu. Chu Xiu said indifferently, "Who told you that I'm going to control you after I have something on you? I have no intention of treating you as a slave. My ambition is much bigger than you think. I'm not satisfied with the position of patrol, and I'm not even satisfied with the position of torture officer. In the Guanzhong torture room, you and your foster father were both foreigners and discriminated against. Are you willing to be like that for the rest of your life? This pugilistic world has never been measured by bloodline or birth, but by the fists and swords in one's hands. I got hold of your weakness for my own peace of mind, and also for yours. But what I can give you is definitely more than you can imagine." Chu Xiaoda was a little stunned. He didn't expect Chu Xiu to say such a thing to him. Right at this time, Chu Xiu suddenly threw a 9-dragon coin to him, but it was missing a corner, and there was a blood-red blade mark with demonic qi on it. During the God Weapon Conference, I teamed up with Mo Tianlin of Shangyang's Mo clan, Luo Feiheng of Wu Jun's Luo clan, and Xia Xiaolu of Heaven Alliance to form the 9-branch hall. We didn't become sworn brothers out of loyalty, but out of mutual benefits. With this 9-dragon coin that represents me, you will also be a member of the 9-branch division. As long as you are willing to pay the price in the future, Mo Tianlin and the others will help you at crucial times. Is this gift big enough? Chu Xiaoda held the 9-dragon coin, and a trace of shock appeared in his eyes. Be it Mo Tianlin or Xia Xiaolu, they were both in the top 20 of the Longhu roll. Each of them was an elite disciple from a large family, and some were even the strongest of the younger generation in their respective factions. Even Chu Xiu was the most outstanding person in the Guanzhong torture room. There was no need to mention how terrifying the faction formed by these people was. Any one of them would have a shocking influence. But now, he could actually use certain benefits to exchange for their help. This was something that Chu Xiaoda didn't even dare to think about in the past. After all, with his strength, under normal circumstances, he wouldn't even be able to touch Mo Tianlin and the others. Holding the 9-dragon coin, Chu Xiaoda asked hesitantly, "Is what you said true?" Chu Xiu said indifferently, "Why would I lie to you? You can take this 9-dragon coin and go to the Shangyang County to find Mo Tianlin of the Mo family. Ask him to help me investigate Qiu Dongmao." Chu Xiaoda asked doubtfully, "Why investigate Qiu Dongmao? That kid is a bit dishonest. I suspect that the poison in the bodies of the Qiu family members has something to do with him." Chu Xiu said in a low voice. Mr. Liu had already said that he came to kill. Qiu Zhensheng's death had nothing to do with the cultivation method he obtained. It was completely the result of him choosing sides too early and Chu Xiu bringing about the butterfly effect. Since that was the case, the cultivation method must still be in the Qiu family. But now that the Qiu family members were dead and only Qiu Dongmao was alive, who else would Chu Xiu investigate if not him? Chu Xiaoda's face showed a trace of struggle, but he still silently put the 9-dragon coin in Chu Xiu's hand into his bosom. If he did not agree, he would die. If he agreed, he would live. Most importantly, he would live better than he was now. There was no need to say what Chu Xiaoda should choose. In the Guanzhong torture room, Chu Xiaoda did not even have a close friend among the warriors of the same generation. Just like Li Tianhao, he had looked down on Chu Xiaoda with a look of mockery and ridicule. As for people like Cheng Zhouhai and Zhong Ping, although they did not look down on Chu Xiaoda, they still did not want to have anything to do with him. If he joined Chu Xiu's so-called 9-branch hall, he would be able to get support from Chu Xiu in the Guanzhong torture room. Outside the Guanzhong torture room, he would also be able to get support from more people. An exchange of benefits was always more reliable than anything else. Seeing Chu Xiaoda's action, the corner of Chu Xiu's mouth curled into a smile. Just like what he said to Chu Xiu before, he was very ambitious. Roping in Chu Xiaoda was nothing. Among the younger generation of the Guanzhong torture room, Chu Xiaoda's strength was not considered outstanding. However, Chu Xiu's real target was Chu Simo, who was supporting Chu Xiaoda. Chu Simo and Chu Xiaoda had a very close relationship. They were almost no different from biological sons. It was far from the relationship of a disciple and a subordinate. As long as Chu Xiu roped in Chu Xiaoda, Chu Simo would almost definitely stand on his side. After making his decision, Chu Xiaoda let Chu Xiu imprint the sacred fiery seal on his arm. After reading the plot of his previous life, Chu Xiu naturally knew what the Kunlun Devil cult's sacred fiery seal looked like. Now that the real Kunlun Devil cult had not recovered, Chu Xiu did not mind using the Kunlun Devil cult's banner first. After imprinting the sacred fiery seal on Chu Xiaoda also knew that he would probably be tied to Chu Xiu's chariot for the rest of his life. Therefore, he immediately changed his identity and asked Chu Xiu, "How are you going to deal with Jiang Wenyuan's matter? After all, the one who killed him is a member of the Faceless Demon sect. You can't possibly betray your own people in exchange for evidence." Chu Xiu said lightly, "Jiang Wenyuan has already gone crazy. We don't need evidence to deal with him." In the past, no matter how much trouble Jiang Wenyuan caused, the Eastern Qi imperial family only treated his actions as small trouble and did not take it to heart. Even if Jiang Wenyuan had recruited a martial arts grandmaster, the Eastern Qi kingdom would not have been afraid, let alone the fact that the Eastern Qi kingdom had no lack of martial arts grandmasters. But now, he has dug his own grave. He even dared to intervene in the struggle between the Eastern Qi imperial family. This was already a big taboo. It would be strange if the Eastern Qi imperial family did not kill him. This time, the Guanzhong torture room is only here to complete the mission. As long as the Eastern Qi imperial family is satisfied with this result, our mission is considered completed. I don't need evidence that he killed Xiuzhensheng. I only need evidence that he colluded with the crown prince and tried to provoke the internal strife of the Eastern Qi imperial family. In Chu Xiu's view, he had completed the mission. As for the person who completed the mission, it fell on the General Fang Zhenqi of the Breaking Edge Battalion. After Mr. Liu returned to the Dragon Gatherer Pavilion, Jiang Wenyuan asked, "Has Chu Xiu been dealt with?" Mr. Liu shook his head and said, "It's easy to deal with Chu Xiu, but that Wang Jin has been following Chu Xiu around. Your Highness, you also know that Wang Jin is an expert from the Imperial Palace. Although she is a eunuch, she is the Emperor's confidant and is not easy to deal with. If I make a mistake and expose myself, I'm afraid I won't be able to make a move again." Jiang Wenyuan scolded in a low voice, "This damn eunuch is really a hindrance." Jiang Wenyuan never had a good impression of eunuchs. After the Liu imperial family ousted the Jiang imperial family, the eunuchs in the imperial palace were the first to change sides and directly surrender to the other party. From then on, Jiang Wenyuan knew that these dead eunuchs who had lost their roots were not reliable at all. Jiang Wenyuan waved his hand and said, "All right, since that's the case, then find a chance to make a move." Mr. Liu nodded and walked down calmly. However, at this moment, the communication jade slip on his waist lit up. Looking at the contents, Mr. Liu couldn't help but reveal a mysterious look. Jiang Wenyuan subconsciously asked, "Who is it?" Mr. Liu said nonchalantly, "It's a fellow disciple of my Faceless Demon sect." Jiang Wenyuan casually waved his hand and didn't care. He was only an ally with the Faceless Demon sect, not a master-servant relationship. He didn't want to know some of the inside stories of the Faceless Demon sect, and the Faceless Demon sect probably wouldn't tell him. Walking down the Dragon Gatherer Pavilion, Mr. Liu's eyebrows twitched. He immediately began to order the disciples of the Faceless Demon sect to leave the Dragon Gatherer Pavilion and the Prince of Enli's palace silently. The message just now was sent by Chu Xiu. He said that the Faceless Demon sect wanted evidence of Jiang Wenyuan working with the Crown Prince, and that he was already prepared to make a move on Jiang Wenyuan. If he succeeded, the Faceless Demon sect would also be able to take advantage of the situation. Mr. Liu was very satisfied with Chu Xiu's attitude. Although in Mr. Liu's eyes, they were all on the same side, helping for free and sharing benefits were two different concepts. Now that Mr. Liu had helped Chu Xiu obtain Jiang Wenyuan's evidence, Chu Xiu would also be able to give Mr. Liu a certain amount of benefits. This would be considered fair, and it would also make Mr. Liu feel that this direct descendant of the Kunlun demon sect really knew how to conduct himself. Currently, Mr. Liu's status in the Prince of Enli's palace was that of a guest, and an extremely important one at that. It was very easy for him to get some clues as evidence. After getting the thing, Mr. Liu secretly gave it to Chu Xiu, while Chu Xiu left Cheng Zhouhai and the others and went to Qiu Zhencheng's manor alone to meet Fang Zhenqi. Chapter 285. In Qiu Zhencheng's case, Fang Zhenqi's performance was very normal. He had been following the orders of the royal family of Eastern Qi and was a loyal character. But Chu Xiu had guessed from the beginning that General Fang was actually on the second prince's side. Chu Xiu's cheapskate father and a few other Imperial Guard soldiers who had died in the Chu clan were all from the Vanguard Battalion. 20 years ago, they had already begun to gather treasures for the second prince. It could be said that the Vanguard Battalion was the second prince's private army. This was not a big secret in Eastern Qi. The Dragon Riders were the army that belonged exclusively to the royal family of Eastern Qi. Naturally, some of them were directly under the command of the Emperor of Eastern Qi. The rest of the princes also held some power in their hands. At present, the second prince's influence in Eastern Qi was 30% stronger than that of the Crown Prince. It was not strange that he had a battalion of the Dragon Riders under his command. Moreover, the second prince had been paying attention to Qiu Zhencheng's case. Qiu Zhencheng had already pledged his allegiance to him, but now Qiu Zhencheng had died an unnatural death in a strange way. The second prince, of course, had to pay attention to this kind of thing at all times. He was responsible for himself, and he also wanted to let the others who had pledged their allegiance to him see that those who followed him, whether dead or alive, would be accounted for. When Chu Xiu arrived at the manor, he found that Qiu Dongmao and the 5 freaks of Jiangdong had not left. They were still guarding outside. Seeing Chu Xiu coming, the 5 freaks of Jiangdong did not have a good attitude toward Chu Xiu. Chu Xiu was cruel and ruthless. They did not have a good impression of him in the first place. Moreover, Chu Xiu had attacked Wu Tiandong, which made them even more hostile. However, Chu Xiu had no intention of competing with them. He directly entered the manor. Before leaving, he gave Qiu Dongmao a deep look, which made the latter's hair stand on end. Only then did he enter the manor. He asked a dragon rider to take him to see Fang Zhenqi. As soon as he opened the door, Fang Zhenqi said in a deep voice, "Is there any progress in the case?" Chu Xiu didn't answer the question and said directly, "I want to see the second prince." Fang Zhenqi frowned and asked, "What do you mean?" Chu Xiu said, "Of course it's just the literal meaning. I've found a lot of interesting things. Strictly speaking, the death of Qiu Zhencheng was implicated by the second prince. Don't you want to know? The thing in my hands will not make the second prince regret it." Fang Zhenqi furrowed his brows and said, "Wait here, I'll go ask the second prince." The second prince had clearly instructed him to investigate this matter thoroughly. He did not know whether what Chu Xiu had said was true or not, but it would not be wrong to report to the second prince first. Fang Zhenqi was one of the second prince's trusted aides, so he naturally had a way to contact the second prince. Chu Xiu waited in the manor for a day before Fang Zhenqi walked over and said in a deep voice, "Chu Xiu, the second prince invites you over." As he said this, Fang Zhenqi directly led Chu Xiu to a manor outside the Ji state capital. As the second prince of Eastern Qi, LV Longguang owned many properties in Eastern Qi, and this manor was one of them. To be honest, Chu Xiu was a little curious about LV Longguang. After all, this prince was very famous in Eastern Qi. It was said that LV Longguang and Crown Prince LV Longji were born only 15 minutes apart, but it was this 15 minutes that made one of them the crown prince and the other the second prince. After he grew up, LV Longguang was naturally very dissatisfied with this kind of thing, and he would compete with the crown prince for everything. Of course, he was indeed qualified to do so. The world worshipped martial arts, and everything was based on martial arts. The royal family of Eastern Qi was no exception. Crown Prince LV Longji's strength in martial arts could only be said to be average, about the same as his father. Even with countless elixirs and the guidance of experts, he only reached the inner invulnerability realm after the age of 30. On the other hand, LV Longguang's martial arts talent was amazing, and he had already reached the innate stage before the age of 20. Later, he followed the Eastern Qi military on expeditions, and had a very strong reputation in the military. In terms of ability, LV Longji was only average. As the crown prince, he held a lot of power, but most of it was handled by his subordinates. LV Longguang, on the other hand, was experienced, which made his subordinates gasp in admiration. It could be said that if LV Longji did not have the identity of the crown prince, he would almost be completely crushed by the latter. However, Chu Xiu vaguely remembered that in the original plot, the Kaiyuan Emperor Lu Haochang was already over 100 years old, but he had no intention of abdicating the throne. Of course, now that the plot had changed a lot, it was unknown whether the second prince would be able to ascend the throne. Fang Zhenqi knocked on the door of a room and led Chu Xiu in. He said respectfully, "Your Highness, I have brought Chu Xiu." At this time, there were only two people in the room. One was sitting, and the other was standing. The one sitting was a young man in his 30s with a beard and a masculine appearance. He wore a golden robe and had a powerful aura. This person was the second prince of Eastern Qi, LV Longguang. His actual age should be in his 50s, but because he was only in his 30s when he stepped into the three-flower realm, his current appearance had always been the same. Behind LV Longguang, there was an old eunuch with a pale face staring at Chu Xiu like a tiger watching its prey. This person was also a great expert in the unity of heaven and man realm. Fang Zhenqi said that you wanted to talk to me about the cause of Qiu Zhencheng's death. What is going on? If you don't give me a reasonable explanation today, even if you're from the Guanzhong torture room, Guan Siyu won't be able to protect you. As LV Longguang spoke, a strong pressure also came over. The second prince was famous for being strong. He was not joking. If Chu Xiu was really playing with him, even Guan Siyu wouldn't be able to protect Chu Xiu. Chu Xiu didn't care about the second prince's attitude. He just said in a deep voice, "Since I dared to ask General Fang to invite the second prince, I naturally have the real thing. I have already found out about the cause of Qiu Zhencheng's death. I believe the second prince also wants to know who killed the man you recruited recently, right?" LV Longguang narrowed his eyes and said with a cold expression, "Who told you that Qiu Zhencheng is my man?" Chu Xiu said faintly, "Second prince, don't worry. This is not a problem within the second prince, but I found out about it." Chu Xiu didn't want to beat around the bush when dealing with someone as domineering as LV Longguang. Instead, he told him everything directly. However, he ignored Mr. Lu's role in all of this. He simply said that he had found out everything by himself. After listening to him, LV Longguang's face was already gloomy. He said coldly, "My brother is really scheming. He actually secretly colluded with Jiang Wenyuan. He really doesn't know what's good for him." If the relationship between the Crown Prince and Jiang Wenyuan hadn't been exposed by Chu Xiu today, he would probably still be in the dark. Although Jiang Wenyuan couldn't help the Crown Prince succeed, it was very easy for him to ruin his plans. LV Longguang looked at Chu Xiu and asked in a deep voice, "Where is the evidence?" Chu Xiu said, "Of course I have the evidence, but second prince, you don't think that I will give it to you for nothing, do you? If that's the case, I might as well directly give the evidence to eunuch Wang Jin and let him report to His Majesty. At least I will be rewarded by His Majesty. How dare you threaten me?" LV Longguang's face darkened. The pale and beardless eunuch behind him also snorted coldly, and a strong momentum attacked Chu Xiu. However, the current Chu Xiu was no longer the Chu Xiu of the past. Even a great master in the oneness of heaven and men realm could not scare him away. Facing the eunuch's momentum, Chu Xiu said in a deep voice, "It's not a threat, but a deal. It's only fair to give and take, isn't it? Second prince, with all due respect, what Eastern Qi needs now is stability. It's useless for me to hand in the evidence that Jiang Wenyuan killed Qiuzhensheng. Jiang Wenyuan will only be reprimanded. On the contrary, if I hand in the evidence that Jiang Wenyuan colluded with the crown prince and intended to provoke internal strife in the Eastern Qi royal family, then Jiang Wenyuan will be killed. It's official business for me to hand in the evidence, but if it's handed in by you, second prince, it can become a tool to attack the crown prince. Isn't this deal worth it? Of course, you are the second prince of Eastern Qi, and I'm just a small Jianghu detective from the Guanzhong torture room. I can't do anything if you want to rob me. But second prince, you are a generous person, so I don't think you would do such a thing. Moreover, I have more than one piece of evidence." After hearing Chu Xiu's words, LV Longguang's face darkened. He was a strong-willed man. If Chu Xiu took the initiative to hand in the evidence, he might reward Chu Xiu for this. But in the end, Chu Xiu threatened him to make a deal, which was what LV Longguang hated the most. However, the evidence was currently in Chu Xiu's hands, and Chu Xiu even said that he had another piece of evidence. If he were to snatch it by force, it would be hard to say whose hands that piece of evidence would end up in. Although LV Longguang didn't know whether what Chu Xiu said was true or not, he urgently needed this evidence to make his brother, the crown prince, look bad. So he temporarily swallowed his anger and said coldly, "Say it, what do you want?" A strange look appeared in Chu Xiu's eyes as he said, "I heard that your Royal Highness has the heaven-extinguishing earth-obliterating oblivion-killing fist from the great sorrow of yin and yang of heaven and earth. What I want is this technique." In the original plot, there were only a few martial arts in the great sorrow of yin and yang. The forget-self-killing fist of the great sorrow of yin and yang was the most famous one, and it was also a martial art with great lethality. This martial art was not only practiced by one person, but many people, and its source was in the hands of this second prince. As the name suggested, the forget-self-killing fist of heaven and earth was a martial art that condensed the way of killing to the extreme, and it was most suitable for martial artists in the army to practice. After the second prince obtained this martial art, he often used it to win over the experts in the army. Chu Xiu was still thinking about how to get this martial art. He didn't expect that the opportunity would come now. Chapter 286. Heaven and earth intersecting yin-yang sorrow fu was a demonic cultivation technique that no one had gathered in the original storyline. But now, Chu Xiu had already gathered 4 of them. Adding the heaven-extinguishing earth-annihilating forgetful self-killing fist, it would be 5. He was one step closer to combining the 7 demonic cultivation techniques. However, when LV Longguang heard Chu Xiu's words, he laughed in anger. "You really don't know what you're talking about. That is one of the heaven and earth intersecting yin-yang sorrow fu. Just this one alone is at the 7th transformation level. Even under me, only those who have made great contributions will be taught this technique. You want a 7th transformation cultivation technique from this king with just this bit of evidence? Chu Xiu, you really don't know how to write the word greedy." Chu Xiu said indifferently, "Your Highness, there's no need to be angry. I've said it before, this is just a deal. Since your Highness feels that the evidence isn't worth it, then how about I add in the heaven and earth intersecting yin yang sorrow fu, heaven extinguishing earth annihilating great purple yang hand. Although the power of the heaven and earth intersecting great purple yang hand is inferior to the heaven extinguishing earth annihilating forgetful self-killing fist, but with this evidence, it should be enough, right? Chu Xiu had already used the heaven and earth intersecting great purple yang hand many times. There was information on it on the Dragon Tiger list, so it wasn't a secret. Moreover, the might of this palm technique was slightly insufficient for the current Chu Xiu, so it was just right for him to trade. Chu Xiu wasn't afraid that others would learn his cultivation technique. The same cultivation technique would have slight differences between people. The most important cultivation technique was the heaven and earth intersecting yin-yang sorrow fu. It was very special. Only by combining all 7 cultivation techniques would it have the power to shock heaven and earth and make ghosts and gods weep. Taking it out alone would only be considered not bad. Right now, the only person in the pugilistic world who had the qualifications to gather all 7 cultivation techniques was probably Chu Xiu, so he wouldn't be at a disadvantage if he took one out for a deal. A strange look appeared in LV Longguang's eyes. The sorrowful poem of heaven and earth conquering yin and yang had been famous in Jianghu for many years. It had been famous since ancient times. He was lucky enough to obtain one, but he didn't cultivate it because the heaven-extinguishing earth-annihilating selfless killing fist was too ferocious. A single punch would reach the realm of selfless killing and condense killing intent to the extreme. A moment of carelessness would cause one to be devoured by the killing intent. Therefore, only the experts in the army who had experienced countless bloody battles and experienced hundreds of battles under his command could initially control it. As the second prince, LV Longguang had plenty of top-notch techniques he wanted. There was no need for him to cultivate this kind of demonic technique. Moreover, he had never intended to collect the complete set of the yin and yang sorrowful poem. Since that was the case, trading with Chu Xiu was not considered a loss. It was acceptable. LV Longguang snorted coldly and said, "This time, I will agree to your request. However, you must remember that there are not many people in this world who are qualified to negotiate with me." As he spoke, LV Longguang stretched out his hand. The old eunuch behind him took out the heaven-extinguishing earth-annihilating selfless killing fist from a secret spacebox and threw it to Chu Xiu. This was the original version. Of course, LV Longguang had many copies in his hands. Chu Xiu also threw the evidence and the heaven-extinguishing earth-annihilating great purple sun palm to the old eunuch. After the old eunuch received the cultivation technique, he carefully checked it. Chu Xiu said, "Don't worry, there are no problems with the cultivation technique. I wouldn't dare to cheat your highness. Since your highness is willing to trade with me this time, I won't be stingy. When you want to make a move on Jianghu Yuan, your highness can get General Fong to inform me. Count me in." LV Longguang played with the jade ring on his thumb and looked at Chu Xiu with a smile that wasn't a smile. "You're so kind as to help me?" Chu Xiu smiled and said, "Your highness is wise. Actually, during the God Weapon Conference, I already had a grudge with Jianghu Yuan. I, Chu Xiu, am not a magnanimous person. Now that I have the opportunity, I won't hit him while he's down. Do you think I'll help him in his hour of need?" LV Longguang's eyes revealed a look of interest. In the end, he said indifferently, "Sure. When it's time to make a move on Jianghu Yuan, I will get Fong Zhenqi to inform you." "Thank you, your highness." After cupping his hands, Chu Xiu left. After Chu Xiu left, LV Longguang asked in a deep voice, eunuchly, "What do you think of Chu Xiu?" The eunuch standing behind LV Longguang pondered for a moment and said, "He's bold and decisive. He's greedy and self-interested. He's not a hypocrite, but he's a true villain. In the Guanzhong torture room, be it the previous great hero, Chu Kuanga or this generation's iron judge, Guan Siyu, there's nothing wrong with their character. Who would have thought that Chu Xiu, the most outstanding warrior of the Guanzhong torture room's younger generation, would be such a person? LV Longguang played with the jade ring in his hand and said indifferently, "What's wrong with such a person? A stubborn person like Guan Siyu isn't easy to deal with. What's wrong with being greedy? This king likes greedy people. If a person isn't greedy, how can this king subdue him? Forget it, let's not discuss Chu Xiu for now. I'll bring the evidence to father. This time, I'll make my good brother lose face." Eastern Qi's great Liang city was the capital of Eastern Qi. It was also the most prosperous commercial lifeline of all of Eastern Qi. Its area was 10 times the size of the Ji State Prefecture. At this time, in the imperial palace of Great Liang City, behind the curtains, a stooped old man was looking at the information that LV Longguang had handed over. His body trembled with anger. This old man was the current emperor of Eastern Qi, Kaiyuan Emperor Lu Haochang. He was an emperor with mediocre abilities and strength, but he had been on the throne for the longest time. It was so long that his sons couldn't help but have thoughts of usurping the throne. However, it was undeniable that Lu Haochang's existence was more beneficial than harmful to Eastern Qi. Without Lu Haochang, the entire Eastern Qi royal family would be in chaos. At that time, it would also involve the internal strife of Eastern Qi. That would be equivalent to a disaster for Eastern Qi. Lu Haochang's talent was mediocre. Moreover, as an emperor, he had no time to cultivate martial arts. Otherwise, who would he entrust the affairs of the country to? If he really wanted to be a puppet emperor who didn't care about anything and handed over power to others, the other Eastern Qi royal family would not allow him to continue as emperor even if they used their feet to vote. Therefore, now that Lu Haochang's mental state was somewhat poor, this gave the crown prince and the second prince some hope. At least they still had the hope of outliving their father and ascending to the throne themselves. However, the second prince and the others did not know that in the original plot, the old emperor would still be alive after 20 years. At this moment, LV Longguang was kneeling respectfully on the ground, but a hint of viciousness flashed in his eyes. The evidence that Chu Xiu had given him was far from enough to topple his elder brother, but it was enough to hurt him. "Go and find me that unfilial son," Lu Haochang said in a gloomy voice. Among the previous emperors of Eastern Qi, Lu Haochang's ability was indeed mediocre. However, this mediocrity was only compared to the great emperors of Eastern Qi. As an emperor who had spent countless efforts on this position, Lu Haochang was also very proficient in tactics. Although he was not outstanding, he was definitely qualified. In his opinion, this time, the crown prince had crossed the line. Internal strife was fine, but internal strife that disregarded the interests of Eastern Qi was courting death. It was a repeat of the tragedy of internal strife in the previous generation of Eastern Qi. Crown Prince Lu Longji was a gentle-looking middle-aged man. He looked much older than Lu Longguang, but he also had a more mature temperament. At this moment, he was a little puzzled as to why his imperial father had come to find him in such a hurry. Seeing LV Longguang kneeling on the ground, LV Longji thought that he had made a mistake and angered his imperial father. LV Longji was just about to open his mouth and take on the posture of a crown prince to ridicule him, but right at this moment, LV Haochang suddenly shouted angrily, "Unfilial son! Kneel down!" Lu Longji shuddered and suddenly knelt on the ground. He heard Lu Haochang bellow, "I don't care about the conflict between you and second brother. You've been the crown prince for decades, and you have all the advantages. If you can't even hold on to this position with such a huge advantage, then I don't mind replacing you with someone else, because in the future, you will not be able to hold on to the throne of Eastern Qi. But you have to know, even if you fight, you can't disregard the interests of Eastern Qi. Have you forgotten the murder of the previous generation of Eastern Qi's royal family? It's because they fought so fiercely that it became my turn to take this position, and you became the crown prince. Now, are you going to hand this position to someone else?" Lu Longji was still confused, and he didn't know what he had done wrong. But now that Lu Haochang was in a rage, he didn't have time to think so much. He hurriedly knelt on the ground and said nervously, I dare not. Lu Haochang said coldly, dare not. If you dare not, then you colluded with Jiang Wenyuan. Don't you know what kind of person Jiang Wenyuan is? If you dare not, then you let Jiang Wenyuan kill the head of the Pegasus farm, Zhou Zhensheng, just because he sided with second brother. Do you know what the Pegasus farm means to Eastern Qi? 99% of Eastern Qi's warhorses now come from the Pegasus farm. Once Zhou Zhensheng is dead, who can take this position? You ruined the foundation of Eastern Qi, and you still dare to say that you dare not. Lu Longji knelt on the ground, trembling. At this moment, he wanted to cut Jiang Wenyuan into 1,000 pieces. It was true that Zhou Zhensheng had rejected him, but he really didn't want to kill Zhou Zhensheng. This was completely Jiang Wenyuan's own decision. But now that Lu Haochang had confirmed that he was colluding with Jiang Wenyuan, it was useless for him to defend himself. So, Lu Longji could only say with a trembling voice, I know my mistake. Lu Haochang snorted coldly, know your mistake. As the crown prince, you don't know how to set an example, and just say that you know your mistake? Didn't you just command a battalion of the Dragon Riders' Imperial Army? Now, it seems that letting you lead the Dragon Riders' Imperial Army is a mistake. I will take that battalion back. Hearing this, Lu Longji's face instantly turned pale. That brother of his had extremely high prestige in the army, and even the general of the Dragon Riders' Imperial Army's breaching battalion took the initiative to side with him. Lu Longji had finally obtained a battalion with great difficulty, but he didn't expect to lose it so quickly. Chapter 287. Under Lu Haochang's wrath, Crown Prince Lu Longji suffered a great loss, but what was more important was his reputation. It was needless to say what kind of treatment a crown prince would receive after committing a foolish act and a grave mistake. However, this matter was not over yet. Lu Longji was Lu Haochang's biological son and the crown prince of the Eastern Qi imperial court. He had to be punished for his mistake. As for Jiang Wenyuan, he had to pay with his life for his mistake. Lu Haochang said coldly, Zhang Rang. A tall middle-aged eunuch in a dark green brocade robe said in a low voice, I'm here. Jiang Wenyuan has gone too far this time. Does he really think that the Lu royal family doesn't dare to kill him? For so many years, I can pretend that I didn't see what he did in the dark, but he should never have interfered in the internal affairs of the imperial family. He should be killed for trying to touch the foundation of the imperial family. His memorial arch has been erected for so many years, and the Lu royal family has tolerated it for so long. We have not let the Jiang family down. Now that the Jiang family has dug their own grave, they can't blame anyone else. Zhang Rang, take the people of the Front Palace Department and cooperate with the Dragon Riders' Imperial Army to kill the Prince of Annal's residents. Whoever brings Jiang Wenyuan's head will be rewarded handsomely. What Jiang Wenyuan had done all these years was like a fly, so disgusting that people wanted to swat him to death. But although flies were annoying, they were not fatal. The so-called guests and hangers-on that Jiang Wenyuan had recruited over the years might be strong in the eyes of ordinary people, but they were vulnerable in the eyes of the Eastern Qi imperial court. But this time, Jiang Wenyuan's involvement in the internal power struggle of the Eastern Qi imperial family had really touched Lu Haochang's reverse scale, so this time, Jiang Wenyuan must die. At this time, Lu Longguang suddenly said, Father, some of my men are also in the Ji State Prefecture, they can also share your burden. Lu Haochang frowned and said lightly, yes, if your men kill Jiang Wenyuan, they will also be rewarded. As the emperor, he was even happy to see the infighting among his children. There was no need to say more about how cruel the royal family was. Almost every emperor was like raising a poisonous insect. Only the winner could sit on the throne. In the history of Eastern Qi, more than half of the emperors were not born as princes. In the past, Lu Haochang was just an ordinary member of the royal family. He had never experienced such cruel competition and slaughter, so his ability was slightly mediocre. Lu Haochang was aware of the conflict between the crown prince and the second prince. He also knew that all of his other sons who had some ability had ambitions and thoughts. However, he did not stop them. As long as his heirs didn't cause too much trouble and didn't offend his dignity as the emperor, Lu Haochang didn't intend to interfere. At that moment, Cheng Zhouhai, Zhong Ping, and Wang Qianping were in an inn in the Ji State Prefecture. At present, the few of them were in a complete stalemate. They clearly had a clue, but in the end, they couldn't investigate the case, nor could they not investigate it. Moreover, Chu Xiu and Chu Xiaoda hadn't returned for a day. God knew what they were doing. Even Cheng Zhouhai had some complaints about Chu Xiu. This time, Hall Master Guan had assigned Chu Xiu to lead the team. They felt that they had done their best. But now, Chu Xiu had disappeared halfway. What was going on? At this moment, Wang Qianping suddenly revealed a strange look in his eyes. He said, "The two of you, it's not that I want to say this, but Chu Xiu's actions are a little too excessive. Lord Hall Master gave the leader position to Chu Xiu, but now Chu Xiu has gone missing. What is going on?" Cheng Zhouhai narrowed his eyes and said, "Wang Qianping, what do you mean?" Wang Qianping sneered and said, "What I mean is that we can't help Chu Xiu take the blame for nothing. He isn't good at investigating cases, but we are. We have done everything we can for him. But now that we are faced with a difficult situation, this Chu Xiu has gone missing. According to the rules of the Guanzhong torture room, if the case is not solved and the reputation of the Guanzhong torture room is ruined, Chu Xiu will be punished. We can't do anything about it. Why don't we write a letter back to the Guanzhong torture room and report Chu Xiu to Hall Master Guan? If something goes wrong, Hall Master Guan can't blame us." Cheng Zhouhai frowned and looked at Wang Qianping. This guy was really sinister. Previously, he had been so calm in front of Chu Xiu, as if he didn't dare to provoke Chu Xiu. But now, he was playing this trick in the dark. If they really reported Chu Xiu in front of Hall Master Guan, it would make Chu Xiu seem to be headstrong and self-opinionated. Finally, it would cause the case to be unable to be solved. Not only would Chu Xiu's reputation in the Guanzhong torture room plummet, but it would also cause Chu Xiu to be punished by Guan Siyu. Guanzhong torture room had its own rules. In other sects, talents like Chu Xiu would definitely be given some preferential treatment. But in the Guanzhong torture room, if you do well, you will be rewarded, and if you do wrong, you will be punished. It was that simple. Zhong Ping said faintly, "I won't do this kind of secretly slandering others, and I'm also too lazy to do it. If you want to go, then go." This time, he didn't contribute much to Qiu Zhencheng's case. He was only good at killing people. Actually, it didn't matter to him whether the case was completed or not. Cheng Zhouhai also looked indifferent. "Wang Qianping, I've heard about what you did in the Guanzhong torture room. Don't play this trick here. If you want to stab people in the back, you can go. I won't stop you, but don't think about seducing me to go with you." Although Cheng Zhouhai didn't think he was a gentleman, he really couldn't stab people in the back like this. Moreover, he didn't want to incur hatred with Chu Xiu because of such a small matter. Even if Chu Xiu really didn't complete the case, which caused his reputation to be damaged and he was punished by the Hall Master, Chu Xiu was still Chu Xiu. His strength was still there. Although the Guanzhong torture room valued merit, at the end of the day, strength was the guarantee. With Chu Xiu's current talent and strength, he would definitely become a torture officer or a leader of the arrest department in the future. Why bother to offend Chu Xiu for such a small matter? Not all the cases handled by the Guanzhong torture room could be solved. There were also many unsolved cases. Cheng Zhouhai could still afford that little punishment. At least, it wasn't worth it to offend Chu Xiu because of this little punishment. Seeing these two people's attitude, Wang Qianping was a little surprised. Because from the past few days of contact, this Chu Xiu didn't seem to be very close to Cheng Zhouhai and Zhong Ping. In the end, they actually chose to stand on Chu Xiu's side. It was really strange. However, Wang Qianping didn't want to care so much now. At this time, if he didn't hit Chu Xiu while he was down, when he returned to the Guanzhong torture room, his master Yin Batong wouldn't let him off. Yin Batong's previous disciple, Li Tianhao, was crippled by Chu Xiu. Since then, Yin Batong hated Chu Xiu to the core. This time, Wang Qianping followed Chu Xiu to carry out the mission. His master had personally instructed him to find an opportunity to cause trouble for Chu Xiu. If Chu Xiu remained unharmed throughout the journey, it would be fine. But now, he didn't mind hitting Chu Xiu while he was down and stabbing him in the back. Wang Qianping sneered. "Alright, you guys are of high moral standing. If you don't want to complain, then I'll do it. Hall Master Guan is very clear about rewards and punishments. I'd like to see if you guys will also suffer when Chu Xiu is punished." At this time, the door was suddenly pushed open. Chu Xiu's figure stepped into the inn. Immediately, Wang Qianping's mouth opened wide. He almost swallowed the words he just said. Chu Xiu's face was gloomy. "Say it, why don't you say it? Didn't you want to go to Hall Master Guan to complain about me? I'd like to see how you're going to complain about me." Wang Qianping's expression changed. He forced a smile and said, "Official Chu, I was actually joking just now." Before Wang Qianping could finish his words, Chu Xiu had already taken a step forward. He arrived in front of Wang Qianping and directly grabbed at him. They had experienced Chu Xiu's temperamental personality before. He would attack as soon as he said he would, without the slightest bit of nonsense or hesitation. Previously, when he was facing the 5 heroes of Jiangdong, he was like this. It was simply impossible to predict. Now, Wang Qianping was mentally prepared. The moment he saw Chu Xiu, the gang energy around him erupted. He retreated and wanted to block Chu Xiu. However, Chu Xiu's grab changed into a seal halfway. The Great Vajra seal crashed down, and Wang Qianping's pitiful gang energy was almost instantly shattered by the Great Vajra seal. The Great Sacrificial Grappling Hand was executed. Wang Qianping was directly lifted up by the neck by Chu Xiu. The gang energy around him was completely sealed. This caused him to instantly reveal a panicked expression. He hurriedly shouted, "Chu Xiu! What are you trying to do? If you dare to touch me, the Guanzhong torture room will definitely not tolerate you." It was a serious crime to kill a colleague. In the previous competition between the younger generation, Chu Xiu had crippled Li Tianhao. It could be said that the sword had no eyes, and the fists and kicks had no heart. However, if Chu Xiu touched him now, it would be a mutual killing between colleagues. This was definitely a big taboo in the Guanzhong torture room. At this moment, even Cheng Zhouhai was shocked. He hurriedly advised, "Brother Chu, calm down. We're all on the same side. There's no need to make a fuss like this." At this moment, Chu Xiu only looked at Wang Qianping with a cold gaze. He said coldly, "If you want to stab me in the back, sure, but you have to be mentally prepared to bear my wrath. Now, are you prepared for this?" Feeling Chu Xiu's cold gaze, Wang Qianping's expression suddenly changed. His predecessor, Yin Batong's former disciple, Li Tianhao, had been crippled by Chu Xiu. Chu Xiu's ruthlessness had a previous record. If Chu Xiu went crazy and really crippled or killed him, who could he go to for justice? Looking at Chu Xiu's extremely cold gaze, Wang Qianping's tone was no longer tough. Instead, he lowered his voice and said, "Official Chu, I was blinded by lard just now. Please don't mind me. I have a cheap mouth. Please let me go this time, Official Chu." Seeing Wang Qianping's appearance, Cheng Zhouhai and Zhong Ping both felt a little ashamed. This person was really a disgrace to the Guanzhong torture room. It was very normal to be afraid when facing a strong opponent. However, there were really not many who would lower their voice and beg for mercy like Wang Qianping. Chapter 288. As a martial artist, regardless of whether they were righteous or evil, they still needed to have a backbone. For example, Wang Qianping begged for mercy like a dog. It formed a very strong contrast with his sinister appearance of wanting to stab Chu Xiu in the back. Chu Xiu just sneered when he heard this. He slapped Wang Qianping's face with his hand and said lightly, "You know you have a cheap mouth. Next time, you better watch your mouth. You need to know that a loose tongue can cause trouble." Chu Xiu's insulting behavior made Wang Qianping's face turn red. If it were someone else, they might have already fought with Chu Xiu. However, Wang Qianping forcibly endured it. He even squeezed out a smile on his face and said reluctantly, "Official Chu is right. I will remember it." Chu Xiu snorted coldly and directly threw Wang Qianping to the side. He said lightly, "Get lost." Wang Qianping lowered his head as a wisp of dense hatred surged in his eyes. He left with his tail between his legs. However, before he left, he did not notice that a wisp of killing intent had also surged into Chu Xiu's eyes. Wang Qianping was just a nobody. If he had behaved himself, Chu Xiu would not have bothered with him. However, Wang Qianping insisted on stirring up some trouble. In that case, he could not blame Chu Xiu for being ruthless. In particular, Wang Qianping's performance just now was simply forcing Chu Xiu to kill him. Chu Xiu had humiliated him in such a manner just now. If it were any other cultivator, they would have long since exploded in anger and fought Chu Xiu to the death. In the end, Wang Qianping had forcefully endured it and bowed to the extreme. A guy who could be described as a smiling tiger by Cheng Zhouhai, a guy who defeated many competitors in Guannan and became Yin Butong's disciple, was now acting so cowardly and tolerating? Was it possible? Chu Xiu could guess how much the other party hated him. If he was allowed to return to the Guanzhong torture room alive, who knew what kind of trouble he would cause? In the past few years, there had been many Jianghu constables from the Guanzhong torture hall who had ventured out to investigate cases, and there had been many who had died accidentally. Right now, Chu Xiu did not want to kill him in public, but whether he could return to the Guanzhong torture hall alive would depend on his luck. When Cheng Zhouhai and Zhong Ping saw Chu Xiu looking at them, a trace of fear appeared in their eyes. There weren't many people in the Guanzhong torture room who disregarded the rules like Chu Xiu. If they hadn't stopped him, who knew if Chu Xiu would have killed Wang Qianping? Chu Xiu smiled at the two and said, "Don't worry, the two of you. This case has been solved. As for Chu Xiaoda, he helped me investigate other things. He will be back in a few days." Cheng Zhouhai and Zhong Ping were stunned. Solved? What did that mean? But before they had time to ponder, a dragon rider Imperial Guard knocked on the door and said in a deep voice, "Official Chu, General Fang asked me to bring you a message. Prince Anil, Jianghu Yuan, colluded with demons and killed an important minister of Eastern Qi, Xianxia, the owner of the Pegasus farm. His Majesty has sent Zhang Rang, the majordomo of the front department, one of the 3 departments of the Imperial Palace. My breaking battalion will cooperate. Official Chu and other warriors from the Guanzhong torture room can also participate. After the case is over, everyone will be rewarded. The one who takes Jianghu Yuan's head will be rewarded handsomely." With that, the dragon rider Imperial Guard took his leave. Chu Xiu nodded in understanding. The reaction of the Eastern Qi royal family was just as he had guessed. Jianghu Yuan was doomed this time. Although the real cause of this matter was the conflict between the crown prince and the second prince, Lu Haochang couldn't punish his own son. So Jianghu Yuan had to die. Since he had to die, he naturally had to give a reason. So the Eastern Qi imperial court casually gave Jianghu Yuan a reason of colluding with demons. Otherwise, how could they explain why Jianghu Yuan had to kill Xianxia, who had no grudges with him and had nothing to do with him. Now in Jianghu, the demons had become professional scapegoats. Once there was something they couldn't explain, they would directly put the blame on the demons. In any case, in the eyes of most people, the demonic path had always been incomparably crazy and illogical. It was very normal for them to do such things. Cheng Zhouhai and Zhong Ping looked at each other, their eyes full of confusion and confusion. Cheng Zhouhai was puzzled. "Brother Chu, what's going on? We haven't had time to investigate the Dragon Gatherer Pavilion. How could Jiang Wenyuan be convicted? Where's the evidence?" Chu Xiu said lightly, "If the Emperor of Eastern Qi wants to kill someone, does he need evidence? This time, we were invited by Eastern Qi. As long as Eastern Qi is satisfied and thinks that the case has been closed, do we still need evidence? Pack up and get ready to take action. Let Wang Qianping, that good-for-nothing, follow us. Destroying Prince Annal's mansion is a good job. After so many years, Prince Annal's bloodline has accumulated a lot of good things. How much you can get will depend on your ability." In a luxuriously decorated manner outside the Ji State Prefecture, Jiang Wenyuan rubbed his head. He always felt a sense of crisis lingering in his heart. It was as if he had neglected something, but he couldn't remember it no matter how hard he tried. Jiang Wenyuan pushed the door open and walked out. He happened to see Mr. Liu. Jiang Wenyuan seemed to remember something. He asked, "What on earth has your phaseless demon sect been doing recently? Why did so many people leave?" Mr. Liu chuckled. "It's nothing. Lord Demon Envoy has some instructions. It seems that we have to carry out other tasks. That's why some people were taken away." Hearing that, Jiang Wenyuan snorted coldly, "Don't forget that your phaseless demon sect is cooperating with me now. Every month, I give you guys a lot of cultivation resources, but in the end, you guys go against me on the surface. Do you really think I'm a fool?" Mr. Liu smiled. "Don't worry, Your Highness. There won't be a next time." Jiang Wenyuan snorted. "Good that you know." At this moment, a sudden battle cry came from outside the manor. This caused Jiang Wenyuan's expression to change. "Who's so bold to cause trouble in my Prince Annal's mansion? Do you want your family to be executed?" Jiang Wenyuan said angrily. At this moment, the door of the inner residence was blasted open. Over 100 martial artists rushed in. The one leading them was a tall middle-aged eunuch wearing a dark green brocade robe. At this moment, the eunuch was surrounded by a light green gang energy. Wherever he passed, a cold and gloomy aura wafted in. Some of the exotic flowers and plants in the Prince Annal's gang energy immediately began to wither when they came into contact with the gang energy on his body. It looked very evil. Jiang Wenyuan looked at the eunuch and said with a slightly trembling voice, "Chief Handprint Master of the Front Palace Division, Poisonous Dragon Hand Zhang Rang. An expert of the Imperial Palace, the true confidant of the Eastern Qi Emperor Lu Haochang." Jiang Wenyuan naturally recognized Zhang Rang. At this moment, around Zhang Rang was Wang Jin, who he scolded a few days ago and ran away. She was looking at him with a cold smile. There was also Chu Xiu, who he had wanted to kill but failed to do so. He was looking at him expressionlessly with the people from the Guanzhong torture room. Among them were the Dragon Riders Imperial Guards who belonged to the Second Prince's Vanguard Battalion. Seeing all these people gathered here, Jiang Wenyuan didn't even dare to think about what had happened. Zhang Rang chuckled and said, "Your Highness, I'm very honored that you still recognize me. Since that's the case, let me see you off today. It's also my honor to be able to end the last Prince Annal in the history of Eastern Qi." Jiang Wenyuan's eyes widened and he shouted, "Zhang Rang. What do you mean?" In the past, Emperor Taizu himself said that he would ensure the Jiang clan's eternal happiness. What do you mean by this? I want to see His Majesty, I want to see His Majesty. Zhang Rang said calmly, Prince Annal, stop struggling. His Majesty is busy every day and has no time to see you. I can't be bothered to talk about your crimes. You asked for it, so you can't blame anyone else. Emperor Taizu did say that he would ensure the Jiang clan's eternal happiness, but don't forget, the one sitting on the throne now is not Emperor Taizu. Prince Anil, go on your way. I'll kill you and receive my reward. Next year, on your Memorial Day, I'll have someone burn joss paper for you. Chu Xiu looked on coldly from the side. He had long felt that Jiang Wenyuan was courting death, but the speed at which he did so was faster than he imagined. Moreover, this time, Jiang Wenyuan could be said to have sent himself to his grave. If he hadn't gone to kill Chu Xiu wouldn't have been so obsessed with him. In the end, Jiang Wenyuan had sent Mr. Liu to kill Chu Xiu. Not only had he failed to kill Chu Xiu, but now he had a mole. This time, if Chu Xiu hadn't handed over the results to the second prince and allowed the second prince to add oil to the fire, the matter would have been exposed. Jiang Wenyuan might have been reprimanded and punished, but he wouldn't have been ordered to be killed by the emperor so quickly. At this time, Jiang Wenyuan's entire body was cold. This was a scene he had never imagined. His identity as a death exemption medallion would have a day like this. Only now did Jiang Wenyuan realize that everything he had was actually given to him by the Liu royal family, whom he regarded as his enemy. The so-called death exemption medallion was only because the emperor didn't want to kill him. If the emperor really wanted to kill him, even 10,000 death exemption medallions wouldn't be enough. Zhang Rang took a step forward, and dark green astral energy erupted from his body. As his claw descended, astral energy shot towards Jiang Wenyuan like a soaring dragon. In the blink of an eye, the area within 1,000 feet radius was enveloped by this highly toxic astral energy. All things fell silent, and all flowers withered. Martial artists who condensed the true martial core and communicated with the power of heaven and earth were known as martial Dao grandmasters. They had the strength to destroy a city and fight an army of 10,000 by themselves. Although Zhang Rang was a eunuch, he was also a genuine martial Dao grandmaster. At this time, his attack had the power to change the color of heaven and earth. Prince Anil, I'm here to send you on your way. At this moment, a sword chime sounded in the Prince Anil residence. A long sword shining with a golden glow pierced through the air, slashing towards Zhang Rang's poisonous dragon claw. The pure yang sword aura pierced through the air and instantly melted the poisonous mist. An old man in a white Daoist robe walked out of the inner residence. The long sword flew back into his hand and disappeared into his loose Daoist robe. The old man said in a deep voice, "Where there's life, there's hope. Your Highness, take your people and leave first." This old man has received great kindness from the old prince in the past, and has been worshipped by your Jiang clan for decades. Now, it's time to return the favor. Chapter 289. Jiang Wenyuan had the ambition to rebel, so he naturally had to have some family background and strength. Otherwise, he would really be an arrogant idiot. Therefore, whether it was Chu Xiu or the others, they were not surprised by the sudden appearance of a martial Dao master who could match Zhang Rang. Zhang Rang frowned and pondered for a moment before saying, "Chunyang Dao sect's abandoned disciple, 9 Palace Scorching Sun, Do Hanwei? It was said that you killed a fellow disciple by mistake and were expelled from the Chunyang Dao sect. You were hunted down to the point where no one knew if you were dead or alive. I didn't expect you to still be alive and have even become a martial Dao master. Since you've become a martial Dao master, even the Chunyang Dao sect can't hunt you down like before. Why are you courting death?" As one of the 3 major Daoist sects, the Chunyang Dao sect was the first to know about any changes in it. Although Do Hanwei's reputation in the pure Yang Dao sect wasn't that great in the past, he was still a well-known figure. Who would have thought that he would suddenly reveal the matter of killing a fellow sect member without permission? Since then, he had been hunted down by the pure Yang Dao sect and was also known by the people of the Jianghu. Back then, he was already in the unity of heaven and man state. Now that decades had passed, everyone thought he was long dead. Who would have thought that Do Hanwei had been hiding in Prince Anil's residence and had even stepped into the martial Dao master realm? Do Hanwei flung his Daoist robe and said in a deep voice, "Killed a fellow disciple by mistake? You're wrong about one thing. It wasn't a manslaughter. I was prepared to kill. Some people really deserve to be killed. Even if I had to betray the sect for it, I wouldn't hesitate. I don't want to talk about these old things anymore. If it wasn't for the previous Prince Anil who took the risk to take me in, I'm afraid I would have become a skeleton in a grave by now. I wouldn't have the cultivation base of a martial Dao master now. I must repay this kindness. Whether it's death or survival, we'll only know after a battle." As his voice fell, Do Hanwei flicked his long sleeves, and from his loose robes, a series of long swords shining with pure yang astral energy shot out one after another. There were a total of 9 swords, each shining with dazzling pure yang astral energy as they slashed towards Zhang Rang. Behind Do Hanwei, Jiang Wenyuan glared angrily, his eyes filled with unwillingness. It was not easy for the Jiang clan to recruit such an expert and nurture him to become a Wu Dao grandmaster. But now he was exposed. Facing the notorious grand supervisor of the front hall department, poisonous dragon hand, Zhang Rang, even Jiang Wenyuan himself had no confidence in Do Hanwei. Uncle Qi, who was standing behind Jiang Wenyuan, hurriedly pulled Jiang Wenyuan and said, "Your Highness. Let's go. We don't know how long Senior Do Hanwei can last. If we don't leave now, it will be too late." Jiang Wenyuan gritted his teeth and said, "Let's go." With that, Jiang Wenyuan left the prince's mansion under the escort of his henchmen. At this time, Do Hanwei had already begun to fight fiercely with Zhang Rang. Do Hanwei was born in Chunyang Dao sect, one of the 3 major Taoist sects in the world. His own strength was extremely profound. Chunyang Dao sect's pure yang astral energy was well known in the world. It was the existence of extreme yang among all astral energies. It had the magical power to destroy evil and was just able to restrain Zhang Rang's toxic astral energy. The martial arts technique that Do Hanwei cultivated was also very strange. He spent more than 10 years sacrificial refining 9 pure yang swords. When facing the enemy, he used pure yang astral energy to control them. He could even form the 9 palace scorching sun sword array with his own strength. Its power was very extraordinary. So even if Do Hanwei broke through to the real pellet state later than Zhang Rang, his combat experience was not as much as Zhang Rang. But right now, the two of them were evenly matched. While fighting with Do Hanwei, Zhang Rang shouted, "Everyone, attack! Don't let Jiang Wenyuan escape." As soon as his voice fell, Zhang Rang's robe fluttered, and his astral energy fluttered. With a claw, a colorful poisonous mist burst out. Like a domain, it shrouded Do Hanwei in it. Within the range, even the heaven and earth's aura was corroded. Zhang Rang was also a little anxious. He didn't expect Do Hanwei's technique to restrain him so much that he couldn't take him down for a while. Amidst the colorful poisonous mist that was so colorful that it was impossible to see what was going on inside, a bright golden light appeared. Do Hanwei spat out a mouthful of blood, which was attached to his 9 pure yang swords. His blood was burning, and the 9 pure yang swords surrounded him, making him look like a blazing sun. "Defend!" With a shout, the 9 pure yang swords slashed out one after another, each more powerful than the other. The 9 swords slashed out together, directly tearing the poisonous mist domain apart. Suppress! In the blink of an eye, the 9 pure yang swords were linked together, condensing into a sword formation that attacked Zhang Rang, instantly suppressing him. The battle between the 2 martial Dao grandmasters fascinated the crowd below. After all, for people of their level, watching experts fight could bring them a lot of benefits. But benefits aside, the mission still had to be completed. After Jiang Wenyuan escaped, everyone immediately began to chase after him. They were determined to bring back Jiang Wenyuan's head. However, Prince Anil residents had accumulated a lot of power over the years. Among them, there were several experts at the unity of heaven and man realm. Even though Wang Jin and Fang Zhenqi had the strength of the unity of heaven and man realm, and there were also many warriors at the unity of heaven and man realm among the front hall division that Zhang Rang brought with him, they were still stopped by the other party. These hangers-on of the Prince of Anlu residence were all recruited by Jiang Wenyuan through his courteous actions over the years. They did not disappoint the offerings Jiang Wenyuan had given them. Even though they knew that the Prince of Anlu residence was about to fall apart, they still fought with all their might. Although there were some who escaped halfway, they were still the minority. At this time, Chu Xiu was also chasing after Jiang Wenyuan with the people from Guanzhong torture room, killing the enemies who came to stop them one by one. Cheng Zhouhai, Zhong Ping, and Wang Qianping followed behind Chu Xiu. They had the least people from Guanzhong torture room, so they were just there to watch the show. However, killing one person was a credit. When the time came, they could go to Eastern Qi to receive a reward. No matter what, it would be more than their salary from Guanzhong torture room. However, at this time, Wang Qianping looked at Chu Xiu with deep malice and resentment. He would never forget the humiliation that Chu Xiu brought to him yesterday. At this time, Wang Qianping was even thinking about whether he should take the opportunity to sneak an attack on Chu Xiu. However, this idea only went through his mind once before it was killed. Sneak an attack on Chu Xiu now was simply courting death. He had already experienced Chu Xiu's strength yesterday. Chu Xiu was an existence that could completely crush him. In the hands of Chu Xiu, he could not even block a single move. Moreover, even if the sneak attack was successful, Cheng Zhouhai and Zhong Ping were here. If they saw him, unless he could kill them, he would not be able to return to Guanzhong torture room in this life. Otherwise, he would be chased to death by people from Guanzhong torture room. Chu Xiu's position in Guanzhong torture room was not the same as his. If he had been killed by Chu Xiu yesterday, then Guanzhong torture room would only punish Chu Xiu severely. However, if he dared to sneak an attack on Chu Xiu and cause his death, it would become an unforgivable felony. After all, he was just an ordinary inspector, while Chu Xiu was the most outstanding young man in Guanzhong torture room. Even if Guanzhong torture room claimed to be fair and impartial, there was still a great difference between the status of each martial artist. Just as Wang Qianping's imagination ran wild, he saw more than 10 diabolism martial artists with monstrous devil qi suddenly rushing out, which immediately shocked everyone present. Previously, they said that Jiang Wenyuan colluded with diabolism and so on. In fact, it was just an excuse made up by Zhang Rang. After all, the internal strife of the royal family was not a good thing to say. In the end, who would have thought that Jiang Wenyuan really colluded with diabolism? This was not an ordinary kind of courage. However, these diabolism martial artists did not come to stop Chu Xiu and the others. Instead, they wanted to rush out. Among them, the direction they chose was in the direction where Chu Xiu and the others were. A strange look appeared in Chu Xiu's eyes. He suddenly shouted, "Retreat!" As soon as he finished speaking, Chu Xiu's figure immediately retreated to the surroundings. Cheng Zhouhai and the others were stunned for a moment, then immediately retreated to the sides. These diabolism martial artists were very strong. The weakest was at the physical invulnerability realm, and the leader was even at the unity of heaven and man realm. If they went head-on against them, they would simply be courting death. It was reasonable for Chu Xiu to ask them to retreat for the time being. And these diabolism martial artists seemed to really want to break out of the encirclement. After Chu Xiu retreated, they directly rushed past them. However, when the leader of the unity of heaven and man realm martial artists passed by Wang Qianping, whose speed was slower than Chu Xiu's, he suddenly slammed his palm down. A giant devil qi hand that was more than 10 feet in size suddenly smashed down, directly slapping the defenseless Wang Qianping away. In an instant, his internal organs were smashed, and he immediately lost all signs of life. Even at death's door, Wang Qianping could not understand why this diabolism martial artist did not attack when he passed by Chu Xiu, nor did he attack when he passed by Cheng Zhouhai and Zhong Ping. However, when he passed by Wang Qianping, he suddenly slapped him to death, as if he was casually slapping a fly that was blocking the road. After killing Wang Qianping with one palm, the leading diabolism martial artist did not even stop, nor did he look at Chu Xiu and the others. Instead, he directly fled into the distance, as if his only purpose was to escape. Cheng Zhouhai and Zhong Ping were dumbfounded. They subconsciously looked at Chu Xiu with a trace of suspicion. They could not be blamed for such actions. Yesterday, Wang Qianping was prepared to secretly stab Chu Xiu with a knife, but was taught a lesson by Chu Xiu. In the end, he died here inexplicably today. Anyone would subconsciously look at Chu Xiu with suspicion. Chu Xiu shrugged and said, "Why are you looking at me like that? Just now, I told you to retreat." In the end, I don't know what that idiot was thinking, but he was a little slow. He blocked someone's path and was killed with one palm. Who can you blame? Life and death are decreed by fate. This guy has no other choice but to blame his own bad luck. Chapter 290. Chu Xiu's words made Cheng Zhouhai and Zhong Ping speechless. Unlucky? Perhaps this was the only explanation, even though it sounded perfunctory. However, under the watchful eyes of the crowd, everyone saw how Wang Qianping died. Cheng Zhouhai and Zhong Ping weren't the kind of people who liked to meddle in other people's business. They also hated Wang Qianping, so no one said anything. Instead, they continued to kill the people from Prince Annel's residence. Chu Xiu said in a low voice, "Don't gather together. Everyone split up. Pick the weaker ones. We're outsiders, and we're only here to get our rewards. The escape of Prince Annel's residence has nothing to do with us." Cheng Zhouhai and Zhong Ping nodded. Even if Chu Xiu didn't say so, they would still do so. If a few experts suddenly appeared and killed them with a slap, then that would be really unlucky. After the three of them split up, Chu Xiu narrowed his eyes. As if he already had a target in mind, he chased in one direction. The people who attacked just now were from Phaseless Demon Sect. However, that Unity of Heaven and Man Realm martial artist wasn't Mr. Liu, but another Unity of Heaven and Man Realm expert from Phaseless Demon Sect. That Wang Qianping was courting death, so Chu Xiu naturally wouldn't spare him. Although Wang Qianping's strength was low and Chu Xiu didn't really care about him, he didn't want to bring trouble back to the Guanzhong torture room. So, he decided to settle it here. He was just a physical invulnerability realm martial artist. The people from Phaseless Demon Sect didn't mind doing Chu Xiu a favor and killed him with a slap. At this moment, Jiang Wenyuan had already escaped with Uncle Qi and another Unity of Heaven and Man Realm martial artist. The rest of the hanger-ons and priests were behind them, blocking the pursuers. For the time being, they shouldn't be able to catch up. Looking at Uncle Qi and the middle-aged man with a long sword on his back, Jiang Wenyuan couldn't help but feel sad. He couldn't help but sigh. The middle-aged man with the long sword on his back said in a deep voice, "Your Highness doesn't need to be like this. Didn't you already prepare quite a bit of assets on the northern Yan and West Chu side? If we can't stay in eastern Qi, we can go to northern Yan or West Chu." Uncle Qi also said, "That's right. The Liu imperial family is treacherous. After this, they will definitely be reviled by the world. A crafty rabbit has 3 burrows." Actually, King Enli's bloodline had already sent people to buy property in the northern Yan and western Chu lands since Jiang Wenyuan's ancestors, as well as large amounts of resources. They were afraid that the Liu family would suddenly turn against them, so they had a way out. However, King Enli's bloodline had been safe and sound all these years, and Jiang Wenyuan had never thought that he would have to use it one day. Jiang Wenyuan revealed a crying and smiling expression. Gone, everything is gone. My roots are in Eastern Qi. Even if I go to Northern Yan or West Chu, I won't have a chance to make a comeback. Only now did Jiang Wenyuan realize that everything he had was given to him by the Lu imperial family. Eastern Qi recognized him as the King of Ease. He was the true king of Eastern Qi with a different surname. He could peacefully develop his power and recruit so many heroes of the Jianghu. Without this identity, he was not even worth a fart. How could he make a comeback? At this moment, a voice suddenly sounded, "Since your highness doesn't want to go to West Chu or Northern Yan, why don't you stay in Eastern Qi?" Uncle Qi and the middle-aged warrior with a long sword on his back immediately became vigilant as they looked in the direction of the voice. They saw Mr. Lu's figure walk out from the darkness. Seeing that it was him, Uncle Qi and the martial artist let out a sigh of relief. They were naturally very familiar with Mr. Lu. The Phaseless Demon sect had been working with King and Li's palace for a long time, and Mr. Lu had always been the one to contact them. However, Jiang Wenyuan looked at Mr. Lu and shouted, "Why did your Phaseless Demon sect people run away just now? You people from the demonic path are really unreliable." Jiang Wenyuan saw that the Phaseless Demon sect people didn't participate in the fight against the pursuers. Instead, they all ran away. Uncle Qi pulled Jiang Wenyuan lightly, indicating for him to calm down. Now that King and Li's palace had completely fallen apart, their cooperation with the Phaseless Demon sect naturally couldn't continue. It was best not to offend them at this time. They might even need to borrow the power of the Phaseless Demon sect to escape. Just as Uncle Qi was about to say something, Mr. Lu suddenly said, "Chu, come out. My Phaseless Demon sect won't be able to take this credit, so I'll give it to you." Chu Xiu's figure also walked out from another direction. He cupped his hands towards Mr. Lu and said with a smile, "Thank you, senior." Seeing Chu Xiu appear, Jiang Wenyuan and the others instantly widened their eyes. They didn't know what was going on. Chu Xiu asked, "Senior, did you move all the things from King and Li's palace?" Mr. Lu smiled and said, "You informed me in time. After the people from the front hall called, I already let the last batch of Phaseless Demon sect disciples use the secret spacebox to move all the things. TSK, all these years, King and Li's palace has really accumulated a lot of wealth. It must have been hard for the Lu family to tolerate you for so long." Chu Xiu, who was pretending to be a demonic sect disciple, had a great deal of business with the Phaseless Demon sect. When the people from the front hall were about to make their move, he sent a message to Mr. Lu, telling them to prepare and take advantage of the situation. In the end, King and Li's palace would definitely be raided and he wouldn't be able to get anything. Mr. Lu also returned the favor by secretly following Jiang Wenyuan and telling him Jiang Wenyuan's location to Chu Xiu. Although the Eastern Qi Emperor had already said that Jiang Wenyuan's head could be exchanged for a reward, he was still a demonic cultivator, and he was from the notorious Phaseless Demon sect. If Mr. Lu took Jiang Wenyuan's head to ask for a reward, he would probably lose his own head to the Eastern Qi Emperor. Therefore, it was better to give it to Chu Xiu. After listening to the conversation between the two, Jiang Wenyuan's face was already red from the stimulation, as if blood was about to drip out. He pointed at Mr. Lu and shouted, "Bastard! You actually betrayed me." Uncle Qi and the martial artist with the sword on his back were also shocked. It was one thing for King and Li's palace to collude with the Phaseless Demon sect. After all, with Jiang Wenyuan's status, it was normal for him to do such a thing. However, Chu Xiu was the most outstanding martial artist of the younger generation in the Guanzhong torture room, and he actually did something like colluding with the demonic cultivators. If news of this got out, Chu Xiu would definitely be doomed. Mr. Lu said calmly, "Your Highness, you're wrong. My Phaseless Demon sect has never been your subordinate, so how could I betray you? Seeing that we've worked together before, I've personally come to see you off." This is already very kind of me. Jiang Wenyuan glared at Chu Xiu and Mr. Lu, looking like he wanted to swallow them alive. At this moment, he suddenly realized why he had failed when he asked Mr. Lu to kill Chu Xiu. The two of them had actually colluded long ago. Chu Xiu took a step forward and said calmly, "Prince and Lu, originally, you and I had minded our own business. Even if the progress of the case was stuck in your dragon-gathering pavilion, it would still depend on the attitude of the Eastern Qi Imperial Court. I wouldn't have forcefully attacked you. But you insisted on killing me. You've courted your own death, so you can't blame anyone else. Now that the Eastern Qi Emperor wants your head, even if you escape to the northern Yen West Chu, you'll still face endless pursuit. So why don't you take advantage of me now? I'll also give you a quick death. Isn't that good?" The middle-aged martial artist with a sword on his back took a step forward and said in a deep voice, "Uncle Qi, take His Highness away first. I'll stop them here." Mr. Lu laughed strangely and said, "Sorrowful autumn swordsman, Han Dongul, you've been a guest under Jiang Wenyuan for almost 10 years, right? Back then, you made a grudge against the Nansang Xiahou clan because of a woman, and it was Jiang Wenyuan who helped you settle it. But in fact, Jiang Wenyuan only said one sentence. For this sentence, you've been a guest under Jiang Wenyuan for 10 years, and you've been loyal to him. Isn't that enough? Why are you risking your life? Don't you know my strength?" Han Dongul pulled out the long sword he'd always carried on his back. It was a magnificent long sword with strange patterns, and it looked unusually dazzling. The kindness of a meal must be repaid, and the grievances of a small grudge must be repaid. Since I've received His Highness' kindness in the past, now I have to repay it. The kindness of a meal is already like this, let alone His Highness helping me block the Nansang Xiahou clan. Although it's just one sentence, it's more valuable than my life. Mr. Lu, I've seen you fight. Your strength is probably only a step away from the martial arts Grand Master realm. I'm far from being your match. But today, as long as I can still pick up my sword, you can't touch His Highness." Seeing Han Dongul like this, Mr. Lu shook his head and said, "Loyalty is always reserved for dogs. A martial artist from a humble background like you is more loyal than those disciples from large sections. Now I know why Jiang Wenyuan likes to recruit martial artists from humble backgrounds like you, even at any cost. You people are really stupid to the point of being cute. I'm a bit reluctant to kill you. I rarely give people a chance. Now, I'm giving you a chance. Are you going to return it or not?" Han Dongul shook his head and said, "Everyone has their own persistence in their hearts. Just like the Kunlun devil cult has been destroyed for so many years, but your phaseless demon sect still doesn't give up. Now, I won't back down either." As his voice fell, Han Dongul actually directly slashed at Mr. Lu with his sword. The sword momentum was as swift as the wind, incomparably magnificent and dazzling. "What a pity, you're so stubborn." Mr. Lu sighed and slammed his palm down. Boundless demonic chi condensed into a terrifying giant hand that attacked Han Dongul's sword momentum. Yama Demon Claw, tearing the heavens and splitting the earth. Almost in an instant, Han Dongul's sword momentum was shattered by Mr. Lu's claw. The scene was completely crushed. However, Han Dongul didn't seem to be afraid of death at all. Seeing that he was no match for Mr. Lu, he actually chose to burn his essence blood to delay Mr. Lu. Jiang Wenyuan's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. Humans weren't plants. Previously, he recruited these hanger-ons and worshippers with utilitarian intentions. In fact, he just wanted to make use of them. However, these people had already accompanied him for more than 10 years or even decades. In the end, they were all risking their lives to protect him. How could Jiang Wenyuan not feel touched? However, now wasn't the time to feel touched. Uncle Qi directly pulled Jiang Wenyuan up and shouted, "Prince, leave quickly." As he spoke, Uncle Qi directly exploded with his fastest speed. He didn't care about any seniority and forcibly carried Jiang Wenyuan on his back, wanting to escape. However, not long after he ran, Chu Xiu's voice rang out behind him. Run? You can't run away. Why don't you lend me your head to claim the reward? Next year, I can still burn some paper money for you so that you can continue to live comfortably in the underworld. Isn't that good? Chapter 291. Chu Xiu colluded with various parties and finally succeeded in getting rid of Jiang Wenyuan with the help of the Eastern Qi royal family. How could he let the other party off so easily? However, Chu Xiu did not expect the Jiang clan to have accumulated such a strong foundation over the years. This foundation was not in terms of cultivation resources, but in terms of people. The Jianghu was evil, and profit was the top priority. Even some of the famous righteous sects spoke of benevolence and righteousness, but in reality, they tossed morality aside. However, the world was so big, and there were some people who truly valued loyalty, filial piety, benevolence and righteousness. For example, Do Hanwei and now Han Dongul were both like this. However, it was a pity that such people were too few. Moreover, with Jiang Wenyuan's current situation, it was useless no matter how many of such people there were. From today onwards, the King of Peace and Happiness's bloodline was destined to go to the underworld. Uncle Qi looked at Chu Xiu behind him in shock. Previously in the Dragon Gatherer Pavilion, he had fought with Chu Xiu. At that time, he knew that Chu Xiu was very strong, but he did not expect Chu Xiu to have such terrifying speed. The fast and slow 9 words formula's inner binding seal was the pinnacle of speed. At least in a short distance, other than consuming too much internal energy and not being able to use it for a long time, there was almost no weakness. In a few breaths' time, Chu Xiu had already caught up with Uncle Qi. He directly slashed at Uncle Qi, and the blood-refined god's aura was mixed with surging demonic energy. Uncle Qi still carried Jiang Wenyuan on his back. He could not retreat, nor did he dare to retreat. He could only explode all the earth energy in his body to block this slash. With a loud bang, Uncle Qi's body did not move, but a trace of blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. Putting down Jiang Wenyuan, Uncle Qi turned to Jiang Wenyuan and said in a low voice, "If not for your highness saving my life in the past, I'm afraid this old man would have long become a skeleton in a grave. Now this old man can only block this one last time for your highness. If you escape to West Chu or Northern Yen, you will have a chance to live. Your highness, take care." As soon as he finished speaking, Uncle Qi formed a seal with one hand. In an instant, his aura skyrocketed from the physical invulnerability realm all the way to the 3 flowers at one's prominence, 5 Qis collecting in mind, and finally to the oneness of heaven and man. This was Uncle Qi's strength when he was at his peak. If he had not encountered a problem when he was trying to break through to Martial Dao Grandmaster, his current strength would not be inferior to Do Hanwei. However, at that moment, Uncle Qi's complexion was frighteningly pale. There were even streams of essential energy surging through his meridians. It was extremely evil. In the past, Uncle Qi encountered a problem when he was trying to break through to the Martial Dao Grandmaster realm. His physical body was actually already rotten beyond recognition. Even with the help of the Jianghu's miracle doctor, Feng Buping, he had improved a little, but he could only maintain the cultivation of the physical invulnerability realm. Now, he had forcefully broken through the seal and unleashed the strength of the oneness of heaven and man realm. In reality, he was committing suicide. Even if Chu Xiu retreated now, it would not take long before Uncle Qi's meridians would explode from overexertion. After bursting forth with his final moment of brilliance, Uncle Qi took a step forward and attacked Chu Xiu. The ground beneath his feet was actually left with a crater that was dozens of feet wide. Uncle Qi could not hold on for much longer, so he wanted to use the last of his strength to fight Chu Xiu to death. Even if he had to injure him so severely that he could not attack Jiang Wenyuan again, it was still good enough. Jiang Wenyuan, who was behind, gritted his teeth as he watched all this. However, in the end, he still chose to turn around and escape. Among the guest officials under his command, Uncle Chi was his true confidant. He was saved by Jiang Wenyuan when he was young, and he was both a master and a friend to Jiang Wenyuan. He could be said to be loyal. However, it was precisely because of this that Jiang Wenyuan chose to escape immediately. He did not want to let Uncle Chi down. At this moment, Chu Xiu, who was facing Uncle Chi, had a serious look in his eyes. Uncle Chi, who had unleashed his last trump card, was so powerful that he was practically no different from the oneness of heaven and man realm experts like Mr. Liu or the heavenly Sin branch leader. At most, his physical strength was slightly weaker. However, Uncle Chi's punch seemed to contain a hint of the power of heaven and earth. His Gang Chi merged with the heaven and earth, passively carrying a trace of power that belonged to heaven and earth. When the punch landed, it brought with it the roar of a dragon and a tiger, roaring through the heavens and earth. Chu Xiu held his sword with both hands. In an instant, his blade was completely soaked in demonic aura. The Avicii Devil's Blade, the gates of hell opened. Facing Uncle Chi of this level, Chu Xiu used the second blade of his Avicii 3 blades to take the attack head-on. The powerful Gang Chi fist collided with Chu Xiu's demonic aura blade, and an earth-shattering sound erupted. A clanging sound rang out, and the blood-colored demonic aura blade shattered. Chu Xiu's figure retreated step by step. When his feet landed on the ground, a hole several feet wide was immediately blasted open. After retreating over 10 steps, Chu Xiu finally managed to stop. However, his hands were already numb, and even the heavenly demon dance in his hands was trembling. This was a complete suppression of strength. No matter how strong Chu Xiu's martial arts techniques were, he would not be able to withstand it. Of course, the current Chu Xiu had improved very obviously. Previously, Chu Xiu had used Dugu Yin to take a blow from the heavenly Sin branch leader head-on. However, that blow had already exhausted all of Chu Xiu's strength. Now, he still had the strength to fight. Uncle Chi did not stop at all. His hands formed a fist seal again, and he smashed it towards Chu Xiu like he was moving mountains and seas. When his fist landed just now, although Chu Xiu had been sent flying more than 10 steps, his entire right arm was dripping with blood. It was obvious that it was not far from being completely crippled. There was not much time left for Uncle Chi. When this fist seal landed, its power was several times stronger than Chu Xiu's great Vajrawill seal. Everywhere it passed, endless sonic booms rang out. Even the space around Chu Xiu had been sealed, so he had nowhere to hide or evade. The pressure of this seal continued to attack. Chu Xiu also landed a fist seal. The surrounding Gang Chi seemed to start to stagnate as it enveloped Uncle Chi. Wisdom fist seal, main space. Heaven and earth were useless. Although this seal technique consumed a shocking amount of energy, it could be used both offensively and defensively. Its power was extraordinary. However, under Uncle Chi's desperate attack, the opponent's crushing power was too shocking. The space sealed by the Wisdom Fist seal only managed to stop Uncle Chi for a few breaths of time before it was completely destroyed. At the crucial moment, Chu Xiu's hand formed the Dugu Yin seal. All the Gang Chi in his body condensed into one. He was as immovable as a mountain and impregnable. 2 consecutive seals blasted out, but they still could not block Uncle Chi's incomparably powerful fist seal. The Gang Chi defense that Dugu Yin had set up was directly shattered. Both of Chu Xiu's feet were smashed into the ground. His body flew backwards, leaving 2 deep marks on the ground. A stream of blood flowed out of Chu Xiu's mouth. His internal organs felt waves of pain. However, the corners of his mouth curled up to reveal a smile. This was because Uncle Chi's arms, which were dripping with blood, were hanging by his side. His body, which had already completely aged and decayed, could not support such a powerful force. Now, He was completely crippled. Uncle Chi sighed helplessly. He had already tried his best. However, Chu Xiu's strength was beyond his imagination. The two attacks that he had unleashed with all his cultivation had actually been blocked by Chu Xiu. The only price he had paid was a slight shock to his internal organs. In this way, even if he wanted to kill Chu Xiu at his peak, he might not be able to do it. However, he did not ask for too much. If he could block Chu Xiu for a moment, Jiang Wenyuan would have an additional chance of survival. His arms were crippled, but he still had his legs. At this moment, all the strength in Uncle Chi's body was channeled into his legs. His feet moved like a qilin shaking the ground. A large area of the ground beneath his feet started to crack. Uncle Chi's body shot out like a cannonball. He descended from the sky and kicked at Chu Xiu. Wherever he passed, sonic booms could be heard. Chu Xiu raised his eyebrows. This old guy's all-out attack was really extraordinary. However, it was a pity that Uncle Chi was already an arrow at the end of its flight. The power of this kick was not enough. Since ancient times, there had been no conclusion on whether a martial artist should train his body or train his chi. However, everyone in the world knew that only a powerful body could contain more true chi, and only a powerful body could withstand all kinds of powerful forces. Therefore, the basics of martial arts must be trained in the body, followed by chi. Right now, Uncle Chi's strength was extremely incompatible with the strength of his body. The strength of the unity of heaven and man realm coupled with his old body that was only at the physical invulnerability realm couldn't allow his strength to reach its peak. Facing Uncle Chi's kick, Chu Xiu did not retreat. Instead, he advanced. He formed a fist seal and faced the sky. At this moment, the fist seal in Chu Xiu's hand released an endless dazzling light. It was as dazzling as the blazing sun, incomparably resplendent. Fulfill the wishes of all, release the supreme light. Forwarding formula, perfect Aquarius seal. This was the strongest seal that Chu Xiu had mastered so far in the fast and slow 9 words formulas. Forcefully using it would even cause a slight backlash of true chi. Previously at the God Weapon Conference, Chu Xiu had used this technique to kill Tong Kaitai. And now, facing Uncle Chi, under Chu Xiu's perfect Aquarius seal, endless Gang Chi and the brilliance of the sun were released. The violent explosion of true Chi tore the ground in a radius of over 10 feet. Even Jiang Wenyuan, who had escaped several miles away, could see the dazzling light in the night sky. In the midst of the endless explosion of Gang Chi, Chu Xiu's figure did not move. When the smoke and dust dispersed, Chu Xiu's face was slightly pale. However, Uncle Chi's figure was already nowhere to be seen. There was only scattered blood mist floating in the air. Under the attack just now, the powerful force produced had directly torn Uncle Chi's body apart, turning him into a cloud of blood mist. This was the consequence of having a weak body. Under the collision of such a level of power, not even a complete corpse could be preserved. Chu Xiu shook his head and said, "Really, why did you have to do this?" With Uncle Chi's strength, as long as he didn't use power that exceeded the physical invulnerability realm, it would not be a problem for him to live for another few decades. He might even survive Jiang Wenyuan's death. In the end, regardless of whether it was Do Han Wei, Han Dongel, or now Uncle Chi, they all sacrificed themselves for one person. This kind of feeling was something that Chu Xiu could understand. However, one's life was given by one's own mother and father. Other than oneself, no one else could take it away. Although Uncle Chi and the others were worthy of respect, Chu Xiu would never acknowledge such a thing in this lifetime. Chapter 292. In the wilderness, Jiang Wenyuan ran with all his strength. He felt that his spiritual chi was being consumed. He didn't know how long it had been since he last felt this way. After living like a prince for decades, Jiang Wenyuan had the strength of the innate realm. However, it was just a realm. It could strengthen his body and allow him to live longer, but it didn't mean that he had combat power. Jiang Wenyuan had already seen the dazzling light behind him. He couldn't help but feel a trace of sadness in his heart. He knew that Uncle Chi probably couldn't stop Chu Xiu. However, compared to the sadness, Jiang Wenyuan's heart was also filled with unwillingness. The Annal residents had accumulated power for so many years, but in the end, they found that everything was no match for a sentence from the Lu family. How sad was this? However, before Jiang Wenyuan could grieve for too long, there was already the sound of wind breaking behind him. Chu Xiu was dressed in black with a demonic saber at his waist. Blood-colored Gang Qi danced around his body, making him look like a god of death. He looked extremely terrifying. If it were any other three-flower realm warrior, Uncle Chi might have been able to block him for long enough for them to escape. However, Jiang Wenyuan's speed was far from enough. Looking at Chu Xiu chasing behind him, Jiang Wenyuan's eyes showed endless fear. When he first met Chu Xiu, he thought of him as a fledgling and wanted to recruit him. Even not long ago, in Jiang Wenyuan's eyes, Chu Xiu was like an ant. He could kill him if he wanted, as long as he did it cleanly. He even dared to kill the owner of the Pegasus Ranch, Xianxia. What was a mere Chu Xiu to him? However, it was only now that Jiang Wenyuan realized that without the title of Annal Prince and the power he relied on to survive, he was nothing at all. In terms of pure combat power, he was the ant in front of Chu Xiu. Seeing that Chu Xiu was getting closer, the fear in Jiang Wenyuan's eyes turned into unwillingness. He shouted, "Chu Xiu! I know you want benefits. Although you can go to the Eastern Qi Emperor to receive a reward if you kill me, you can get even more if you don't kill me. Northern Yen. Western Chu. I have countless assets and accumulations here, and I also." However, before Jiang Wenyuan could finish speaking, Chu Xiu's hand moved, and a scarlet-red blade light attacked. In an instant, Jiang Wenyuan's head was separated from his body. There was still a look of dissatisfaction in his eyes, but his head was already in Chu Xiu's hand. Perhaps until his death, Jiang Wenyuan could not believe that Chu Xiu would kill him without even listening to his conditions. Holding Jiang Wenyuan's head, the heavenly demon dance was not stained with any blood at all. The blood flowed along the edge of the saber to the ground, and the saber remained sharp and dazzling. Chu Xiu was not interested in Jiang Wenyuan's conditions, and he did not plan on going to Northern Yen and West Chu to think about these things. It was more convenient to take Jiang Wenyuan's head to receive his reward. What's more, Chu Xiu did not intend to forgive those who wanted to kill him. No one could change his mind. Sometimes, having a heart of stone was also a kind of decisiveness. After searching Jiang Wenyuan's body, there was nothing of value. There were only a few special machine keys, which should be used to store some of the treasures and resources in Prince Annal's mansion. It was of no use to Chu Xiu. The entire Prince Annal's mansion had been ransacked by the Phaseless Demon sect. The rest of the things would definitely be taken away by the front hall department. It would not be Chu Xiu's turn. This time, Jiang Wenyuan escaped in a hurry, so he definitely did not bring the rest of the things with him. Therefore, Chu Xiu did not care about the body and directly left with the head. When Chu Xiu returned with Jiang Wenyuan's head, Han Dongel and Mr. Lu had already disappeared. However, Chu Xiu had already guessed the result. Facing an expert like Mr. Lu who was only one step away from the martial arts grandmaster realm, Han Dongel was no match at all. He should have been killed by now, and even his body had been cleaned up by Mr. Lu. When Chu Xiu returned to Prince Annal's mansion, the battle there had just ended. The front hall department's chief steward Zhang Rang was not in a good state. His neat dark green robe had been torn, and his face was incomparably pale. His originally gloomy aura was now filled with traces of pure yang energy. However, this was not a good thing. His injury was caused by the pure yang astral qi entering his body. For a martial artist like him who originally cultivated in evil techniques, it was a hard injury. It would take a while to heal. However, in front of him, Do Hanwei was already dead. 9 pure yang swords were scattered on the ground. More than half of them had been shattered. Do Hanwei did not fall, but his face was dark green. His body was emitting corpse energy, and there was a big hole in his chest from Zhang Rang's attack. His heart was nowhere to be seen. After the battle, this former disciple of the pure yang Daoist sect was defeated by Zhang Rang. He was defeated, which meant he was dead. He had repaid the Jiang clan's debt of gratitude, even though he had to pay it with his life. As for the other members of Prince Annel's mansion, they were either killed or escaped. The entire Prince Annel's mansion had completely fallen apart. When they saw Chu Xiu return with Jiang Wenyuan's head, everyone present revealed a strange look. They did not expect that the one who killed Jiang Wenyuan would be an outsider like Chu Xiu. This made them feel a little regretful and unconvinced. However, after seeing this scene, Zhang Rang's expression improved a little. His Majesty had asked him to complete this mission. If he had messed it up, then his impression in His Majesty's heart would be lowered. Now that Chu Xiu had returned with Jiang Wenyuan's head, and the rest of the members of Prince Annel's mansion had been mostly killed, Zhang Rang could take these things to report to Lu Haochang. Zhang Rang coughed and said, "Chu Xiu, you've done well this time. I will put in a good word for you in front of His Majesty. The Eastern Qi Imperial Court will not take a single cent of the rewards promised for the Guanzhong torture room mission. Similarly, the few of you have also participated in the killing of Prince Annel's mansion. I, Eastern Qi, will also reward you according to your contributions. Especially Chu Xiu. His Majesty will reward you handsomely for killing Jiang Wenyuan." After Chu Xiu and the others cupped their hands in thanks, Zhang Rang took Jiang Wenyuan's head and left with his men. Chu Xiu was not afraid that Zhang Rang would tamper with the credit because he did not dare. At his position, there were too many people who had their eyes on him. Therefore, Zhang Rang could be said to be very careful and did not dare to cross the line. Now that they were in public, everyone knew who the credit should be. Zhang Rang could not be greedy for this kind of credit. When they returned to the inn to rest, Cheng Zhouhai and Zhong Ping were still in a daze. This mission could be said to be the most inexplicable one they had ever carried out. He had completed it inexplicably, and he had even participated in the mission to kill Prince Annel's residents. However, Zhong Ping felt that he had killed quite a lot of people. Si Ming had taught him all kinds of killing techniques since he was young. When it came to investigating cases, he could not compare to Cheng Zhouhai or even Chu Xiu. However, he was very good at killing people. Therefore, when he took action this time, the number of people who died in Zhong Ping's hands was almost double that of Cheng Zhouhai. 2 days later, the rewards were handed out. It was unknown whether it was because Lu Haochang was generous or because the Eastern Qi Imperial Court was rich and overbearing, but the rewards given to Chu Xiu and the others were very generous. The rewards promised to the Guanzhong torture room were all given by the Eastern Qi Imperial Court. Zhong Ping and Cheng Zhouhai also received a lot of extra rewards according to the number of people they killed. Of course, Zhong Ping received more. As for Chu Xiu, because he killed Jiang Wenyuan, he received the most preferential treatment. In addition to giving Chu Xiu a lot of cultivation resources, the Eastern Qi Imperial Court also gave him an 8 revolution elixir, the 5 elements regeneration elixir. Generally, elixir pills from first revolution to third revolution were relatively common and could be refined by low-level alchemists. But the elixir pills from 4th revolution to 6th revolution not only required the proficiency of the alchemist, but also the accumulation of a lot of precious materials. Even the elixir recipe had to be very strict. A little mistake would lead to the failure of the whole furnace of elixir pills, resulting in heavy losses. Therefore, Most of the elixir pills from 4th Revolution to 6th Revolution in Jianghu were only qualified and capable of refining by some big sections. As for the 7 to 9 Revolution pills, they were called divine pills by some people. They had powerful effects and were extremely difficult to concoct. The control of the fire was extremely strict. If the person concocting the pill was a little bit off, he would not be able to succeed. Even most of the elixir pills from 7th Revolution and above were accidentally produced when the elixir masters were refining other elixir pills. The amount of medicine in the elixir recipe had changed in some way. But sometimes, this kind of thing could only be found by chance. A lot of materials were consumed. Sometimes, it was possible to refine elixir pills, but most of the time, it was a pile of waste. Chu Xiu looked at the 5 elements biotransformation pill with a strange look in his eyes. The royal family of Eastern Qi was really considerate. They knew that he was about to step into the 5 Qis collecting in Yuan realm, so they rushed to give him a 5 elements biotransformation pill. This 5 elements biotransformation pill was refined with 5 extremely precious 5 elements materials. It could balance the power of the 5 elements in one's body. The medicinal efficacy would circulate in one's body in an endless cycle, bringing extremely strong medicinal efficacy to the user. For a martial artist like Chu Xiu who was about to break through to the 5 Qis collecting in Yuan realm, the 5 Qis collecting in Yuan realm was definitely a great help. However, Chu Xiu did not refine it right away. If he wanted to refine a god-tier pill of this level, he would need at least a few days. And now, Chu Xiu had not really polished the 5 Qis collecting in Yuan realm to its peak. When Chu Xiu felt that he was almost ready, he could take this 5 elements biotransformation pill and break through the bottleneck in one fell swoop with the help of the medicinal efficacy. This would save Chu Xiu a lot of time. At this time, Chu Xiaoda also returned and brought news from Shangyang. Cheng Zhouhai and the others did not know when Chu Xiu had hooked up with Chu Xiaoda, but they also knew the ways of the world. Chu Xiaoda had something to say to Chu Xiu, so they temporarily retreated. You're tuning in to the Unparalleled SwordWill YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.